Hello and welcome to the fifth episode of Pop Culture. I'm your host, 24 Eyes, and today I got a pretty cool guest. He's got a pretty cool project called The Company Men. We'll be talking about that and a bunch of other stuff. He's the other half of Comics Mate's show, and he does great reactionary. He also does a lot of sketches and work on his own show. Artist, the man known as Kemosabe. How are you, sir?
G'day everyone, I'm the man called Kemosabe, the man with the plan from the land down under, and mate, that's got to be the most high-tea, high-energy intro I've ever seen. That music was fantastic. I love the graphics and the images. It got me hyped. I'm so glad I'm here. That was a lot of fun. More shows need an intro like that. I feel like I'm at a concert. Let's go. This is good. Let's talk some shit.
Well, I've been excited to talk to you since I've been in your chat, and you were doing a lot of the portraits for your project. And you're taking requests from the chat. I thought that was lit, just going through like, hey, whatever pops up, let's do that.
Hey, man. If I find it interesting, it's fun what some people come up with, stuff that matters to them. That one dude he suggested Rooster Cogburn, and he hit me up later and said, that's because my dad really loves True Grit. It's his favorite movie. I've backed your book. Any chance I can get that particular sketch? I said, I'll make sure you get it. What's your back number? I'll make sure you get it. Stuff like that. And then one of the Aussie blokes said Con the Fruiter, which is a comedic character from over here in Australia from 30 years. You have to be 40 years old to know who he was, and he said, can I get that one? I said, yeah, man, that's fun. I mean, why not? So, yeah, if two people turn up, I could draw what I want to draw, but then why would people stick around? It'd just be me drawing my own characters. I'd rather draw what other people want to see. And then I can talk about what I know about the character. Somebody brings up Banana Man or Super Ted. I'm like, yeah, man, I grew up watching that. I know all that sort of stuff. So it's a great format. It's a lot of fun. I call it my safe space because it's just me on there talking and people chatting to me. And I can just, you've been there. I just ramble 3-4 hours nonstop. I just talk. There's no dead air. There's no dead air.
No, there are amazingly no dead air. I don't even know how you do it. Like you keep like it's a stream of consciousness, but it's well thought out. It's not like filler. It's not a bunch of ums or ohs. It's real thoughts. Whatever people are mentioning in the chat, you're staying up with it, which is like difficult in its own because like I don't understand how you're trying to concentrate on sketching and then on the same time like reading the chat. The only other person I've seen that kind of does that, like can read the chat and sketch at the same time, is Scotsman.
Yeah.
TV, like.
Yeah, he's good. He's really, really good at what he does. I think for me, it's almost automatic. Like a lot of the sketching's muscle memory. I've talked before about how I think probably artistic ability is majority natural talent, I believe, and then what you do with that talent. Everyone's born with a tank of talent, and your tank's filled a certain way. Mine's sort of like 50% filled. And I worked on it, but not as hard as I did, so I got to 55. Some people are born with 10 and they can't draw stick figures. Some people are born with 90, like I think it might have been Picasso or someone, and his father said at 6 or 8 years old, he said to his son, here's my brushes, here's my paint. I quit painting. You're already a better painter than me at the age of 8 or whatever it was. I will train you and I will teach you, but go forth and just paint because you're already way ahead of where I was. And like I had an art teacher in high school said the same thing. He goes, you're 16 and you're better than I am at 56. And I'm not even that good, man. Like I'm journeyman sort of level. So there's different tanks, different ability levels. For me, where I'm at, what I'm saying is I can do it automatically. To do something more complex, a more involved pose, a bigger picture, more detail, more background, more interaction between two figures, I'd have to concentrate, and I certainly couldn't do that stream of conscious type stuff I do now. So stay in your lane, don't punch above your weight. I know where I'm at, and I operate at that level.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean. Your sketches are pretty involved though, because like a lot of people I've seen do like sketch cards, they'll just like pencil it out or something, and just like maybe do like light ink, but you actually go through and like shade the characters and stuff and do some shadowing and things. Like they're more in-depth sketches. So I would suggest anyone like pay attention for this gentleman's for any of his campaigns, because the sketch thing is something you want to jump on fast because they get shut down fast because there's only so many that people can do.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy to say everybody who did a physical tier gets a physical sketch, because that's about 200 and it's about 200 sketches I think I've got to do. Yeah. And I'm about a third of the way through, so expect to see a lot more sketch streams in the next couple of weeks.
Kind of drew yourself in a corner. Well, I mean, Rini did that. Irene Draws did that with her wood carvings, right? Completely. She got on like Shane Davis's stream, and they promoted that, and then that thing just blew up, and I think she got like 150 or 160 of those things.
Income. That's a big job.
Yeah.
And it's just the balance I want to walk. Like, yeah, it's a sketch card. It's not a work of art, but I don't want it to be bad either. Like, it's got to be good enough. And I don't know if you've been on there. You might have seen. There's a couple of times I've drawn one. I'm like, this isn't good enough to send out to someone. I was trying to draw Tony Soprano the other day, and the likeness wasn't good. The card itself was all right, but it didn't look like Tony Soprano. Like, if it doesn't look like Tony Soprano, it doesn't look like anyone. I can't send this card to someone.
No,
so I had to toss it, you know?
No, what you should have done is drawn like a little gold chain on there and made him Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
that's a brilliant idea. I should have done that. Next level, you know?
So you just changed around. I meant to do that. You thought I was drawing Tony Soprano, but I was really drawing Carl the entire time.
I did that the other day. I was supposed to draw the Jareth from Labyrinth, and ended up looking like Dream from Sandman. I'm like, right, it's Dream from Sandman. Coloured his hair black, done. Move on to the next one. So, yeah, I mean, they're fun because they're fast. I'm a pretty fast worker too, though. Sometimes I'll be on someone's draw stream, and you know they'll talk for an hour or two, and they'll just get like the figure sketched out. And I don't know if it's because that's how slow they work, or if they have to concentrate on the chat so they can't do both. Whereas I feel I'm lucky that I'm able to do both. I can keep up with the chat. What do I usually get? Sort of 4 or 5 or 6 cards done. Oh no, closer to 10 really. Closer to 10 cards every time I sit down. Now that I think about it, so I just try to make it entertaining. I've got to do it anyway. I may as well chat to some cool people while I do it and get some input.
It's good content for the channel. It's a good way to being live, you know, it allows people to come in and like see what you're doing and get to know you. And then the interpersonal interactions is what, you know, develops like a real fandom and allows people to like want to come and check out the project. I think it's really smart. I think more artists need to focus on figuring out some kind of stream or doing, if you like really just can't do a stream at all, then they need to work on like doing the 10-minute videos and play the algorithm game.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of advice to do that lately with a lot of the pop culture stuff. But I've almost got like fatigue over some of the teeth gnashing. You know, it's like what's the latest thing? The race swapping in God of War. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like I'm so past that. They broke my heart with He-Man, and what was the next? And then Resident Evil casting just killed it. Like they broke my heart, and then they're stomping it in the dust. I'm like, I've got no heart left. I don't care anymore. You're not getting my money. I'm making my books. Every spare cent goes towards making these comics.
They stomped on Ghostbusters. They destroyed G.I. Joe. They made G.I. Joe globalist. They ruined Transformers. Like
everything.
They went after it all. Yeah. But the thing, well, you know, actually they haven't got Dungeons and Dragons yet.
They're trying hard.
Give it time. Yeah. I'm sure that there'll be like some books with some classes, and so there'll be like some alternate, like, we have some new race. Oh, then we have new genders or something. Yeah,
well, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And you can see the beginning, the start of that sort of stuff. They're doing like the wheelchair accessible dungeon, all that sort of stuff.
Wheelchair accessible dungeon?
You haven't heard that?
Oh, no.
So you got some evil overlord decides to make this dungeon and infest it with monsters and hide his treasure and stuff. But then he decides, because he knows eventually at some point in the future, some sort of adventurers are going to come looking for his stuff, it'd be really unfair if he put steps in anywhere, because then any adventurer that happens to be in a wheelchair won't be able to access the dungeon. So he chooses to put ramps in everywhere, and it's laid out in such a way that it's accessible to people in a wheelchair.
Oh,
that's a real thing, and it is blowing up on Twitter. It was a huge deal because people said, "Who's this for? This doesn't make any sense."
Who plays that? Like, at what point? And you're role playing. Like, why would you want to role play and pretend like you're in a wheelchair? Like, what sense does that make? If you're stuck in a wheelchair, wouldn't you want to like pretend to fly or some shit, or at least walk? I don't know. Maybe be a centaur. Like, I don't know. Like,
man. In a world where magic exists, where you can use 10,000 gold pieces and a diamond to bring anyone back to life, you just repair your damaged legs or back, wouldn't you? It doesn't make sense for somebody to be in that state necessarily when magic's so easy and so accessible and so affordable in the D&D universe. I mean, you know, look at a lot of the, like, if you had level 1 D&D spells, you could just about run this whole planet. Like the real basic level 1, level 2 sort of stuff. There's stuff in there that's like, I love that. What's that one where you wake up in the morning and you just, all your hair's done, you're fixed, you're clean, you got fresh clothes, you're ready, you know, like that full. There's one that you just like go, and your whole body's just ready to go. You wake up in the morning, you're feeling like shit, you're looking like a hobo, your beard's everywhere. You probably have a bit of that, you know what's happening. You know what I'm talking about, brother.
Every day.
And you just like, boom, I'm Henry Cavill, bitch. Like, I mean, come on, that's
dude,
the
like a Jetsons kind of setup. That, you know, dude, I'm waiting for that too. How nice would it be to be able to just like not even have to like get out of bed, but just have that thing like move you over onto a conveyor belt and just roll, and like you just get washed clean, and like by the time it stands you up, like you're looking fresh.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
like
Yeah,
maybe inject you with like nicotine and caffeine and whatever else.
Get you going for the day. You get your daily pill. We've seen a few shows like that. Equilibrium. You've got to take your daily pill. The next thing I reckon they're going to go after as well, they already started, is Warhammer 40k, or your Warhammer miniatures and that sort of stuff, because it's not analogous to D&D, but it's in the same realm. It's a similar sort of fan base, and there's this whole big push to sculpt all the women in better proportions, not have women be shoeless or wear boob armor, or
God forbid that you be attractive. It's like a war on attractive women, dude. It's like don't be attractive and don't be in shape. Like God forbid that you're allowed to be in shape. Like whatever. People make their own life decisions, and I'm not shaming anybody unless you just are like obnoxiously obese and then you want to like pretend like you're not healthy. You know what I mean? As long as you're honest. If you tell me like I'm fat and I'm just lazy about my diet and I don't care, all right, fair enough, like on you. But don't tell me you're fat because that's natural. Like your blood cholesterol level is supposed to be 1,000. You're supposed to have diabetes and your legs fall. Like get the
big
fuck out.
Bones. Yeah. I love dudes that are just like, yeah, I'm a fat fuck and I know it. I don't care. I eat all day. I eat back. I don't care, man. Like.
I have respect for that. Yeah,
they've got the priorities. They got the priorities. It's on them. Like you were given a body, whether it's a temple or whether it's a carnival ground, that's on you. Somebody was saying this is how you do this proper form of a exercise on Twitter. I'm like, oh, thanks. I've been doing it wrong all this time. Ha, joke. I don't work out. I go for a walk every day. That's as much as I do. But people who do work out, I've got huge admiration for them, because there's a science to it. It's not easy. You can't just brush up against a weight set and turn up swole. Like you've got to put in years of dedication. And even dudes that juice, even if you're juicing, you still got to put in the time. You can't just slam something in your ass or in your veins and expect to have results the next day or the next. Like you still got to work out.
That's the biggest like misconception. What people don't understand is like how steroids work. They don't just magically make you stronger. They make you heal faster, and so you have to do the workouts to tear up the muscle. You get stronger as a side effect of healing faster from doing the exercise.
Yeah. It bugs me when people say, oh, such and such steroids. Even if the dude is on steroids, he's absolutely jacked. He's absolutely shredded. I got respect because he puts hours every day in to look like that. Whether it's narcissism, whether it's a drive to be the best he wants to be, or she. There's plenty of fit jacked chicks out there now. I respect that. I wish I had the drive to do that. I spend all my time writing and drawing, and that's where I'm at.
Well, this is the thing. Now we're finding out. I mean, they have TRT. They have testosterone replacement therapy for men. Like, anybody can get it. I don't know how it is in Australia, but I know in America.
Can't get it in Australia.
In America, you can get it, and I can get it. Like, I can go online right now, and there's like 15 different people that I can hit up, and they'll set me up with a doctor's appointment. And it's like anywhere from $25 to like $100 a month. And that's the testosterone, the blood work, the doctor's visits, all that kind of stuff. Like, all taken care of, like one low monthly.
Yeah, it blows my
payment.
mind. And can't do anything like that over here.
Oh, dude, the only thing that I'm mad about in America is that Bush really screwed us over with the stem cell research and putting a lot of limitations on it. So if you want good stem cells, you have to schedule an appointment down in Texas and then fly to that doctor's hospital in Panama. And go down to Panama, to do this.
Yeah, that is strict. That is strict. It's pretty harsh over here. You can't import anything. We've only got one place in all of Australia where, say, marijuana is legal, and even then you can only have a couple of plants for yourself. You still can't sell it or whatever. But then there's this place called Nimbin, which is this whole town where everyone is high all the time. Everyone smokes pot all the time. The minute you get off the bus, you got 8 people crowding you and giving you like huge kilo bags. Like, bro, you want to buy some leaf? You want to buy some leaf? I'm like, I'm good. Everybody, like the cops know it. Everybody knows it. You walk into Nimbin. You won't even get past the town sign. Just accept it. It's like they just started doing it, and the cops are like, if we try to arrest or fine everybody in this town, like they turn up once every couple of months and do a sweep, and they're like, yeah, guys, we're going to head into Nimbin tomorrow. Sure, it'd be a shame if we caught anybody with any marijuana, and then everybody hides their shit. They just go back to normal for like 30 minutes, and it takes the cops to walk from one side of town to the next, and then they're back to normal. It's just all day, Yeah, man, it's like
Wayne's
wild.
World. Game on.
And it's almost like if you're driving in or out of Nimbin and the cops stop you and you've got some stuff in your bag, they're kind of like, they don't look too hard, or they just sort of go, okay, it's Nimbin. Nimbin's a different place, man. It's a magical fairyland. I don't get it. Right on the coast there. Beautiful.
Dude,
Everyone should visit at least once.
I just got sad for a second because I was thinking about Wayne's World, and I was just thinking like we'll never get like it'll be like 20 years. It'll be 20 years before like we get another movie like that.
I mean, this has been happening for at least 20 years. I think about 20 years ago. What are you looking at? What 20?
At least they had American Pie still. Like at least that was acceptable. Now you can't even have a foreign exchange student. Like that's just bad.
Oh yeah, there'll be cultural appropriation. There'll be all sorts. I remember we had a bloody exchange student at our school. He come from Belgium. He could speak like 4 languages, but like Swiss, German, English, and French. It's like that's like how's that a bad thing? That's impressive. That's cool that he can do that. I'm trying to learn a bit of Spanish at the moment. Get there. I can't. I'm better at writing and reading it than I am speaking it. I think maybe because I'm a writer.
Oh man, maybe that's what needs to be done. Someone needs to make like a series of pulp comics that are like all like stories like we used to watch, like Weird Science, like good 80s movies,
yeah, man.
Like Meatballs, things like that.
Meatballs, how good! I haven't seen them in years. They made like 4 of those. I think they just kept going. They're good fun though.
I think
you couldn't do it today.
We could bring everything back in the comics, right? Because like you couldn't make a Clint Eastwood Western anymore because there's too much like rape in those movies.
Yeah. And it's funny because whenever they showed that sort of stuff back then, it was always like I don't know, the people who are, the woke scolds and SJWs and the censorist people, they should have loved that stuff because it was all, it never glorified it. It was cautionary tales. Hey, if this is the situation, like rough people will do rough things. Cruel, crude, criminal people will do cruel, crude, criminal things to you. If you're vulnerable, this is what's going to happen to you. Like it only reinforces and bolsters all of their myriad of rape fantasies and the statistics they like to throw around, like 3 out of every 4 women have been sexually assaulted. We know that the studies that they use to bolster that are just complete bunk. Like that was just it's made up, it's lies, it's been misrepresented. If anything, a lot of these movies reflect the realism of the world, and you think these people who are so down on stuff would like that, but instead it's like you can't, this is what I'm saying. Zac Efron played Ted Bundy, and people saying, how could you? You're glorifying him. He goes, what's glorified about it? He was a horrible killer. He killed a bunch of people.
Terrible,
it was tough for me to do that. Is Robert Carlyle, he portrayed Hitler in a miniseries about Hitler. He did a great job. He really sold the part. He had the hair and little mustache and everything. If he'd done that 10 years later now, people would say, how dare you do that? You're glorifying Hitler. There's nothing glorious about showing the truth about these evil people. And if you forget the past, you're destined to repeat it. So what's the problem with having a movie about Ted Bundy saying what a bad dude he is? I don't understand.
Well, see, the problem is that if you talk about stuff and you keep it like historically accurate, then they can't change it. You can't adjust the narrative in that circumstance.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Like if everyone forgets about it, then you can just be like, oh, you remember how sexist that was? No, I don't, because it wasn't. Get the fuck out of here.
That's right.
It was called a joke. Revenge of the Nerds, like. That movie would never fly just because of the pie scene, right? Like when they were selling the pies, that'd be revenge porn, right?
Yep.
Like there's revenge porn, or the bounce castle scene where like he's wearing the Darth Vader mask and he sneaks in there. He's like, was that a nerd?
And I was even thinking, like I've been watching a whole bunch of, g'day D, I've been watching a whole bunch of revenge movie type stuff, like I was telling you earlier, Death Wish, Savage Streets, that sort of stuff. Some of like the female revenge movies, and then also the male ones, just looking at the difference between them, because I got a project I'm going to work on later that I'm using a lot of this stuff as research sort of thing. And I was just thinking, even something like Savage Streets, even though it's like the whole message of the movie is men are awful walking rape machines and women need to arm themselves and fight back, even though that's the message, they'd still find something to complain about. That is their message. They're like, oh, women can't walk home. That's literally the SJW's message. I can't walk home at night. All men are rapists. All men are potential rapists. What about that woman saying, my 3-month-old son started drinking breast milk from me directly without asking permission. That was a form. Like he's literally sexually assaulted by my own 3-month-old son because he was 3 months old.
No. The male gaze is an assault or an affront to women now. And even if it's a fictional character, if it's in a video game, they're freaking out about this new Korean game that's coming out.
I saw that. That dude.
And that wasn't even like it's an android. It's not even like a good cartoon ass or so. You know what I mean? It wasn't like it was drawn.
There wasn't a lot there. It was a little ass. If you're going to complain, complain there's not more there.
Yeah, we used to go full. But what happened to that? Like that used to be the thing. Like the fantasy art has always been like jack dudes and sexy women. I don't understand. Like it's mythology, it's fantasy. Like the same thing in comic books. Like, why does everyone have to be like they're not relatable? Well, duh, it's a superhero. They're not supposed to be relatable like that. They're not supposed to be you. They're supposed to be super. That's why they have the super bodies and the super strength and the like, God, you know. Like,
if I wanted relatable, I look in the mirror. And even when you do something that's halfway between, like Spider-Man, he was relatable because he had my sort of problems, girl problems, money problems, college problems, whatever. He still had that escapism, the idea that you could have those problems but still somehow overcome. He was still superhuman. He was still bigger than life, the big, colorful 4-color pages. Like, you still had that. Jake's dissing me. I'm pretty, Jake. What are you talking about? Yeah, man. So they want to take all that away from us. They want us mired in reality. They want us mired in drudgery. They don't want us to have any escape, any fantasy, any hope. Because fantasy gives you hope. When you think, hey, maybe I could be like that. Maybe I could be like Conan. Maybe I could be tough and fight back. Maybe I could stand up for what's right. Maybe I could be a hero. Because a hero is someone who acts.
God forbid I want to be like Batman and train. Like, train to become something greater. You know what I mean?
To have a mission, to have a goal.
Yeah, he's like Green Arrow, like any like non-super, you know, like some more money-based, had to train, learn how to fight guy as opposed to like super powers or alien or whatever origin there is, mutants, etc. Like, just human training, like you can't even, like, that's an offense to people. I'm like, what?
Yeah, like it's and they'll say it's mired in colonialism or classism or something, you know, the idea that only certain class of people can afford to or have the time to go. Like, they'll find an excuse to rag on anything. They want to break anything that's good, anything that builds you up. They want to knock your sandcastle down every second of every day. They're an ocean. They're an ocean of piss and pity, and they wash over you every second of every day. And you see what happens when water washes over rocks for 100 years. It wears them down, and they become smooth, and they become nothing. Nothing sticks to them. There's no spikes. There's no creativity. There's no jags. There's no indentations. There's no personality. They want to be these bland, bulbous little egg stones that they wash over for all time. It does my head in, man.
But they're doing a good job because they really like cut off so many different things. Like they cut off like tons of avenues because people stop making it. Like, you know, everyone's so focused on this like BS that like there are no like adventure. There's no like young Kevin Smith. He's a bad example now in his older age, but like, you know what I mean? Like, there was no young like director that's like daring to do some kind of movie that's like offensive or anything. Like,
these days they make sure they tick all the checks on the checkbox. You know, they make sure they've got the right identity. They make sure they've got the right politics. Nobody can afford to be counterculture anymore, to the point where, as a lot of people smarter than me have observed, now counterculture is traditional culture. The only way to be countercultural is to go back to tradition, to go back to even conservative values are now considered counterculture, because the culture that we're trying to counter against that's so oppressive is this, you see in Assassin's Creed, everything is permissible. That's a biblical quote. Everything is permissible, but it's not a good biblical quote. It's the idea that when man's given the permission to do whatever he wants, he turns heaven into hell. He turns earth into hell. Like, we can't help ourselves, you know? And the idea that you can just be able to do whatever you want, that's the lie they sell you, while they control everything else below that lie. That's the surface. That's the pretty surface. Like, hey, guys, you can do whatever you want, unless it's racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, POC, you know, all the things are going to rattle off.
It's going to be impossible to do projects in the future without having like a massive, like, you know what I mean? Because like they're dwindling it down. Like, you can only be written by, voiced by, and edited by your race, but you have to have everything in there. Or sexuality, or a mix of, right? So how are you going to find a, let's just say someone with an odd sexuality, a different ethnicity, and you know what I mean? Like, you're already like taking things that are like a very small section, right? And then you want to duplicate
a niche within a niche within a niche.
And you want to duplicate that 3 or 4 times to create one project, like, and have a team. I mean, everything would be this big council, like, and everyone knows, like, the more fingers in the pot, like, the too many cooks, like, it messes up the stew. You have to have like a singular focus and vision, and you just like, either you are the person that's entertained by it, like you're that person's audience, or you're not. But you have to be along for the ride. Someone has to control the narrative.
Yeah, it's got to be. The buck's got to stop with somebody. They've got to have one particular vision. Otherwise, too many people want to see different things at the end. And I think getting into a project with anybody, that's what you need to sort of say. It's either, look, I defer fully to your vision. Like with my book, I pay the artist and the colorist and the letterers. All the IP is mine. All the benefits are mine. All the losses are mine as well. I pay them. They do the job. the buck stops with me. Win, lose, or fail, it's on me. And if it's succeed and I become a millionaire off it, they don't get anything beyond the work that I paid them for, because that was the agreement. But at the same time, they don't have any creative input, so I have all the risk for myself, sort of thing. And but if you're going to go into a partnership sort of thing, I think you got to sort of say, well, what do you want the end to look like? You got to know what you're doing as a team. This is our end goal. Are you good with that? Yes. Okay, you can come on board. If not, I mean, best of luck. Find another project, or we'll use your skills and pay you for your skills up to a point. But beyond that, we're going to say thanks, but no thanks. We're going to do our own thing now. You know, you might help with one aspect of it, but you can't be a part of the whole project because you're not on board with what we want the end result to look like.
Yeah. Man, it's so crazy, dude. They're attacking everybody. I mean, they're literally just attacking everybody, and when they go after some of the things, like, it makes me laugh because they're like, oh, She-Hulk was sexist. No, the original She-Hulk was based off of a female bodybuilder, and it was like drawn up her proportions pretty well, and so. Like, no, that was actually based off of a real woman, and a real strong woman, like an actual existing human being. Like,
and I don't want to admit that.
But God forbid.
If there's any female superhero character, you jump back 30 years in time and ask any comic fan, who do you think's the most feminist icon style female character? I bet most would say She-Hulk. Some would defer to Wonder Woman because of her place in the Trinity, but I'd maintain that she was still sort of serving the JLA sandwiches at that time. You know, like, She-Hulk was the one who had the most agency. She was the most aware of herself. She's the one that's like, I'm 7 foot tall. I got the titties. I got the donk. I got the muscles. I'll do what I want with it. Whether it's pose for Playboy or whether it's knock out the rhino, I'll do what I want with it. Like, she was the most pro-positive and there's definitely a positive side to feminism, like OG feminism. There's good work that they've done. A lot of people talk about where they've ended up now is not necessarily where they set out from. You know, the ship set out and it's okay, we're on track. No, we're not on track anymore. We're here where air conditioners are sexist and men should wear skirts. Like, it's a complete deterrent from what it used to be. But if you talk about what original feminism was and what it wanted to do back in the time, talking the 70s, talking the 80s, women's lib sort of stuff, nobody represented that better than She-Hulk. So they've taken that away from her, and they've taken away all the achievements that she had as a character, all of her firsts, first to do this, first to do that. You know, the fact that she had such an identity that was so different from, she was She-Hulk, but she was so far removed from what Bruce Banner was.
Oh, yeah, no, it's completely different property. No one ever, like, grouped that. It's not like, she's always had a definitive identity, even, like, for a casual fan, I would say.
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of crossover between them. They didn't see each other that much. They were cousins, but honestly, He-Man turned up on She-Ra more often than the Hulk guest starred in She-Hulk, but Batgirl's always hanging around Batman. You know, Supergirl's always relying on what are you doing, Superman? I'm fighting Doomsday. Cool, I'll tag along. Like, they don't have their own identity so much. She-Hulk was the first to really break away and say, "Boom, I'm a woman." And it touched on the nudity and the sexuality. She slept with dudes. There's a bit where the dudes took photos of her sunbathing nude on the roof, and she tried to get them back. You know, and there's like that whole agency thing. And then I believe the story, if I remember the story correctly, there was a printing error. And the story and the photos printed in regular flesh color, so it looked like a regular person, not She-Hulk, so they couldn't tell it was her anyway. You know, but John Byrne was doing so much forthright thinking stuff with that, and nobody wants to talk about that stuff. Instead, they what do they say? To be her own character, She-Hulk has to look and act more like Hulk. That's the opposite of what she needs to do. That's a 180.
I think, like, the most offensive thing that's happened to date has to be He-Man, where they took Teela and they're like, this new Teela is way more realistic. No, the new Teela, if you take the hair off that character, if you just erase the hair, looks like a dude. But secondly, first of all, the original He-Man was rotoscoped. And, like, what half of, like, most of these dumb kids don't understand because they never, like, study anything. They never go back to understand or appreciate is that this is animation based off of drawn over live action actors. This was a real woman. Teela was a real woman. Evelyn was a real woman. These proportions were drawn off of real people.
You've seen the photos, man. They're like that was a real person. They all were. They had a dude to play He-Man, a dude to play Skeletor, they had a dude to play a chick to play Teela, and one to play Sorceress, if I remember correctly. I've seen photos of them. That's real people with real proportions, real costumes. Is exactly right. So to say they need to change her is it's body shaming. They're saying, oh, that woman's she's not realistic enough to be a woman. Well, what are you saying about a woman everywhere then? Where are her organs bigger? Like they want this is what I'm talking about. One size fits all. Don't be a sexy woman. Don't be an unsexy woman. Just be this blank rock that we can continue to wash the features off. We continue to just beat you
blob.
down.
Yeah, amorphous blob with a short haircut that's pink and tuft in some direction. And I've seen couples like that, and I'm just sitting there thinking, like, what is going through your mind? Like, what is attractive about this situation? Like, what are you doing in your relationship if you're both so, like, occupied with all this BS that you're like, you look exactly the same, but you both look like freaks, and not necessarily like one, like, you know what I mean? It's like you became Borg or something. I don't know. It's weird.
It's almost like they pick someone who can tolerate them because they got the same politics. I've been with my wife for about 14 years now, and people say, which is not huge, but it's better than some, not as good as others, you know. And some people don't belong together, and like I know people who, you're like, they should have split up years ago, but they keep banging on, and I don't know why they do. But when people say to me, hey, you know, you guys have been in it for 14 years, and you face some adversity, how do you get through it? And I say, well, we got the same values, we want the same thing. You know, when a situation comes up, like a moral situation, we'll both respond to it the same. When you say, what should be the outcome of this issue, we both tend to say the same sort of thing. We have the same values, so we gravitated towards each other. I think it's almost similar with these guys. Not they've got the same values, but because they've got the same gender identity, the same amorphous blob mindset. Yeah. You know, because it's not just blob in nature, it's blob in mind as well. They're like, well, you don't bother me because you have the same talking points. You're the same, you know, the NPC. You're the same NPC as I am. You're the same grey, featureless person that responds with the same talking points. So they can sit there and be mad at Trump together. You know, like, I hate Trump. I hate Trump too. Let's not get married because marriage is a civil union of the patriarchy that advantages men over the oppression of women. Blah, 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 blah. You know, like,
all the stuff. You know, I just don't get it though. It's just not I don't understand what goes through your mind, like when you're having sex. What goes through your mind when you're just, like, spending time together? Like, what are the two thinking when they're like watching Netflix? You know, and like.
I reckon some of these people, it's a bit like when they have kids. Some of these people have kids, and you see they just use them as a trinket, as an accessory. Oh, my kid's is trans. My kid is this. My kid's going to this school. My kid's going to that school. My kid's done first in the spelling bee, whatever. Like, they don't care so much about the kid. They care about what they can do. I know people like that. They're like, oh, my kid's the same age as your kid, and they can count to 400 back and forwards, and they're speaking in 3 languages. I'm like, cool, my kid's 4, and he can't count to 5. He goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. He'll get there. When he gets into school next year, they'll sort him out with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm not worried. He's got a great little imagination. He's got a fantastic personality. He comes up with the best stories. He's always writing and drawing his own stories. That matters more to me than if you can rattle off dates and times and locations and stuff like that, you know. So I think these people who get with other amorphous pink-haired blobs do it for the social collateral. Look at us. We're a unit. We got the same values. Or this person is trans, non-binary, whatever, so I get the credit of, you know what I mean? So I'll suck the feminine penis bigot thing, you know, like, you know, that whole thing. Like, here's the person I'm with. It's like when dudes say, I can't be racist, I got a black friend. It's like, I can't be something or other phobic because my significant other life partner is a transgender, amorphous, binary, non-binary, agender, other kin tree self. Tree self is a thing.
Yeah, no, I know. I love the other kins. Like, there's just so. Oh man, the layers that it gets into. Like, and it's like a breakdown of society, and that's the sad part. And in the interim, like they just mull over all these great things. My hope is that they mull some of these properties so bad that they become so inexpensive that, like, they're optionable, you know, where we're a real art. Now, it'll piss off a lot of SJWs, and I don't envy the first person to do it because it's the first person that's gonna get nailed the hardest, you know. Yep. But man, he scooped up. I mean, could you imagine if he scooped up and the right person scooped up, like G.I. Joe again, the Transformers again, wrote like brand new episodes, but like right off of the old Lord, and you have really good animators and stuff. That's what I'm kind of hoping with the CG thing, is that like you see a lot of people are just in the independent stuff all around, because I think that there needs to be more emphasis on the middle-sized creators and building like a way up to this next tier, as opposed to just kind of, you know, highlighting or doing marathon shows for like the top 5 creators in the you know.
Yeah, there's an issue with the way the structure is at the moment, and it's I think it's all g'day Tony. I think it's all learning steps, baby steps. You know, like we're the first people to do this sort of thing. and we're nutting it all out and seeing what works, what doesn't. There's going to be failures along the way. You reform, you reconverge. You go, okay, that didn't work. This did. Let's do more of this. I was only saying to someone the other day, like my stories, my ideas, my characters, I believe, are dynamic and entertaining. But in terms of marketing, aside from having a strong meme game, which I've got a fantastic meme game, I'm not really a forerunner or a front thinker. I don't have that sort of dynamic mindset that goes, hey, this is a marketing opportunity. I'll capitalize on that. Someone like your boy is good at that sort of thing. He sees opportunities. Someone like Michael Oden or Dean James, who's in the chat right now, a minute ago, they're the sort of people that see an opening, a niche, and they go for it. I described it as like we're all rats in the maze, and these guys are constantly ferreting out ahead, looking for the next opening. I'm chewing at this wall, trying to get through. You know what I mean? Like I just plod along, trying to get where I'm trying to get to, and whereas Dean, Oden, these other guys are sniffing around the sides, finding these little ins and these little ideas, and they get ahead of me because of that. And I feel like I'm sort of just copying what other people do. I see somebody do something that's really good at marketing. I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea. I could do that. It's like, yeah, but now I'm just doing what they're doing. I don't really tend to innovate when it comes to marketing. So we need a whole range of people that have a bunch of different skills. On the Sinner that I'm working on with Dean, the next book we got coming out, we've hired Oden to do a bunch of the marketing, not like so much the front man, because I'm happy to get on and talk to anybody about anything anytime. You can tell that's not a problem. And Dean, he can talk too, but to handle the marketing, to handle the tiers, to handle the tchotchkes, the different levels, the backer levels, all that sort of stuff, the pricing, the trade dress, all that sort of stuff. He's handling a bunch of that sort of thing. So we can unload that onto him, focus on just being present. He's going to book all the shows for us. We're just going to turn up and talk. Like that's the skills that he brings on top of being a fantastic writer himself. So I can supplement my own shortcomings with that sort of stuff. And same thing with Dean, you know, like I give him my scripts. My scripts are just flow of consciousness sort of thing with dialogue and directions. He turns them into pages and panels for me. I don't send him page one. You know, you see scripts, page one, panel one, high angle view. I don't do that. I'm like, they're in a warehouse. This happens. This is what they say. You sort it, you know, and I've only worked with a couple of artists, and most of them seem to like that freedom. They seem to like, hey, I appreciate that you're trusting me to break this down panel by panel and choose the pacing. And I'll say, okay, there's a fight scene here. Try and include this, this, and this. Like I've got a Batman character. Like at one point, I want him to use the tether line to like wrap around a dude's throat, jump over a beam and string the dude up, and like he's just there, sort of thing. Like try and fit that in there somewhere. I said, but aside from that, just, you know, batarangs, backflips, gas bombs, whatever. Go for a page 2 if you want. I'm happy for you to make it 2 pages. I'll just pay you for another page. I'm not that worried about the page real estate. If it goes, it's supposed to be 48 page, it turned out to be 52. Okay, it's 52. That's cool. Like it's not that big a difference in terms of the printing. If that's what the story needs, that's what the story needs. So I'm lucky to be working with the sort of people that have got the same mindset, the same values once again, and who are able to say, look, I'm willing to work with Kemo. He gives me this. Oh, I can see myself on the screen. Like Rocky said, you know, we fill gaps, him and Adrian. Adrian's brother says, Rocky, why do you want to date my sister? She's plain. She ain't nothing to look at. And he said, Tony says they fight. It's pretty funny to see in a script. Yeah, man. Like I try to give some direction. I want this guy to win. I want this and this to happen in there. But generally, I'm happy for the artist to do that. He does a punch, and this guy blocks, and he does a side kick with a spin twist. No, that's not my job.
You don't want to break down the choreography.
No, that's no fun.
Chan, Jet Li stuff.
And then he's stuck drawing this particular kick. What if it's really tricky for him? What if he hates it? What if I say, you know, like, a lot of our writers say, I ask my artists, what do they like to draw? One dude says horses. So he set the whole thing on a ranch. He goes, I just set the whole, like all the stuff to do with the dialogue and the catch up. I set that on a ranch. The dude could draw horses. One dude, you know, like Kelso, the guy in the company, man, he loves drawing titties. He just loves drawing titties. And he said, can I put strippers in this scene? I said, go for it, brother. Can I put some prostitutes in this scene? Yes, man, more prostitutes. Can I put like some hot dancers in the background? Go for it, my man. Make that happen, you know?
All the go-go dancers, all the strippers.
Yeah, man.
More the merrier.
I mean, it's set in the Middle East, but I'm sure there's some strippers somewhere in the Middle East. We're not going for full authenticity here. It's all good.
Oh, man. Well, I want to see, like, you know, more branching out, you know, more into the toys. We see a little bit of dipping into the toy thing. The video game thing, it's difficult because there's not
much potential there.
There's a lot of potential. It's just like video games don't have the best history necessarily on crowdfunding. So it's like, but I think maybe, you know, someone who comes in with some legitimate projects, you know, and finds like a real developer and already has, you know, understands like the money that it's going to take to do the situation, or has some kind of history, could probably, turn the tide on it. But
And
it's gonna be an undertaking.
Start small. Do like a Streets of Rage type game, like Streets of Rage 4 come out. Yeah, it's got the vintage of Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3, but it was huge. It made them crazy good money. Heaps of people bought that game. I bought it. I bought the DLC. It's a fantastic game. Like, you can make that game on the Beats of Rage engine. You can make that game on Unity. You can make that game on that other one that's on Steam. It's like it gives you a 2D side scroller. It gives you a top down, but then I realized you can use the top down on an isometric view to make a beat 'em up type game where you move up and down. It's not that big of an undertaking to make a simple beat 'em up game.
Yeah, like a side scroller or something.
Yeah, because the engine has all that stuff. It starts small. Do like a Plants vs Zombies thing, but it's all your different, I don't know, Cyberfrog characters using tongue attacks against the Vesper DB things. Like start small. Just make it fun, make it cool, make it a couple of bucks on an app, whatever, and people get that, they'll like that. People are going to back some of this stuff just because the name's attached to it. A big part of CG is a popularity contest. I think it's disingenuous not to say that. The fact that Cecil made over $250,000 off a cover and 3 pages is a popularity. The amount of times I've seen people on a stream, and I don't even watch those streams that often, but I've seen people say, "Hey Cecil, just want to let you know I'm backing your book for the 4th time. Thanks for all the jokes and humor. I really needed your sense of humor today. I'm having a bad week, bad year, whatever." Like, people love that dude, and they will just throw money at him because it's him on a project.
I literally thought that project was a joke. I thought it was like the world's like most expensive. No, I just thought it was like the most expensive. Like, everybody throwing in like there wasn't going to be a real book, because that's the way everybody was acting. Like, there really is never going to be a book. It's just
and that's and the joke of people, I'll be mad if you deliver this book. Hey man, I didn't pay for a book. I paid for no book. You better not send me a book. People make it. It's fun and it's funny and it's lighthearted, and everybody knows they're not really serious. You're all going to get your cash grab. It's not a problem, but it definitely is a popularity contest. So if you make this little simple game, this little side scroller, takes it like Matt Crotts, he's in the chat right now. He's got a fantastic book with Kyrie. It's Roman legionnaires in North Africa. It's got like ancient mysticism, that sort of stuff. It's one of my top books of 2020. I did a video, the top 10 books of 2020. Kyrie was in there. I'm going to do another one for top books of 2021. I'm looking forward to putting that video together. I'll probably start on it soon. Really, how many good books are going to come out between now and then? You could do a nice little Alex Asterix type side scroller with the characters from Kyrie, and you could do it with Flash. You draw the characters up and you just move the bits, and they slash the monsters and they fight the bad guys, and they pick up power up stuff. It could be a real simple thing. You just need one little gimmick and somebody who's half decent at doing 2D art, and Unity does most of the stuff for you. Like, we could start really small on this stuff and build up. A lot of people want to like go big. Oh, we need like this huge Skyrim level Cyberfrog game. That's not going to happen. That's millions of dollars. Start small, get some support, get some funding, get people saying, hey, these guys are pretty. You get a little studio of 5 or 6 dudes from CG that know what they're doing, put out a little side scroller game of any property. You could even, with a Streets of Rage type game, or even something like I was saying with Kyrie there, if the engine's there, you can swap characters in. You could do like an upgrade pack. It's like, okay, this is the Graveyard Shift upgrade pack. You get 2 or 3 characters from Graveyard Shift. Same game, same enemy, same level, same power up. Drop them in. It's like a DLC, and you could just keep upsell that time and time and time again. You could just be constantly adding new characters to the roster. People pick what they want.
There's a lot of something that I think that the people in the middle need to do, because, like I said, like, it doesn't serve like a great purpose when like the top 5 or the top 10 creators are like the ones that are only being seen. But if the middle creators, anybody that's doing anything from like 10,000 to 40,000, whatever, that 50,000 maybe, like, take those creators, if they're working together, you know what I mean, and then they can have cheaper packs, and you could always go back and after you've set up the model, proven it through a few campaigns, then ask, hey, Shane Davis, would you like, hey, John Mellon, would you like, hey.
That's right.
Von Klaus, would you like to like add some characters to this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like other stuff too. I've been saying for ages there should be we should do a unified CG card set. It takes somebody in the middle sorting it and somebody contacting people. But everyone's doing cards, trading cards, but each card's different format, different content, and you can put them all in your folder and they look cool. I tend to back almost exclusively digitally, so it doesn't matter to me. But imagine if you had a unified card set like the 1992 Marvel Masterpieces with all the stats on the back. And you remember those had like out of 7, like something like that. That's something that once you've got the format, it's just a matter of slapping the picture on underneath the frame, putting the power levels where you want it, and 3 lines of flavor text. Like, that's an easy job. Somebody in the middle who could set that up. If people agreed to it, it'd be very easy to do that sort of thing. You could sell packs, you could sell boosters, you could every new campaign that comes up, like, hey man, you're CG, you got a new campaign, you have 5 characters on your team, do you want 5 cards? And and then it becomes part of the next booster or whatever.
Well, with the games though, there's so many options. I mean, you got like hero click kind of things that you could be doing. I mean,
especially with 3D printers.
You could take all these characters and you could put them into that. One of the things that like Irene did is made her cards have like character stats for Pathfinder, and like it would be so easy to move a lot of that also, like, because people forget that Marvel had a companion book for first edition Dungeons and Dragons. So
yeah, I know they had their own game, but I didn't know that. I didn't know they had a first edition D&D handbook. That's interesting. I heard the other day that the Marvel handbook sprung out of that sort of stuff when Marvel was dabbling in tabletop gaming. I don't know if that's true or not.
I don't know. I seen it. It was like I used to collect like first and second edition books, and it was like one of the things that like I found like by accident, and I was like, oh man. Because I got divorced, I had to sell all of my books. But
sorry, man. Sorry to hear that.
Oh man, dude, I was collecting those since like high school too. Like I had dude, I had a good collection.
But that's another option. Like, why is there not a CG source book? Make a base, and the thing is, you can make a base rule set. Make it even D20 base because it's the most popular and everybody knows it. I played a little bit of 5th edition a little while ago. I don't mind how streamlined 5th edition is. I'm getting older. The older I get, the less rules I want, the less hassle I want. I feel like you're about to kick me for saying 5th edition isn't terrible, but I didn't mind the streamlinedness of it.
No. So I'm 2nd edition mostly. I really didn't like 3rd and 4th because I felt like there was it was just designed to be completely hack and slash, and it was like ultra mega like every character like became Dragon Ball Z. Now I have this prestige class, and I can do this thing, and I got this new super weapon. Oh, I slaughtered an entire battlefield of zombies.
It's a video game power creep made its way into D&D.
Yeah, it just got ridiculous, and so I feel like 5th kind of balanced it out. But like what people forget too is, again, go back to 2nd edition. Skills and powers was the first like movement into that 3rd edition, into that 3.5. Like those were all the feats and different things. Like the additives started coming in with all 200 different things. What I'm surprised though is that so many people are playing Pathfinder, because like when I started like. What got out of like active gaming like that, GURPS was way more popular than Pathfinder. Like had way more books. And it's another adaptive system that you could just, paste your characters right over, give stats and like create. And like, but
heaps of content for it too.
I mean, like, but like 5th edition, like companion sets, you know what I mean? Like, cause there's the the little box, you know what I mean? Like for every comic book, you could do this. You could get the little starter box where you have the 5 characters, a set of dice, a little story, to play through, like a little.
It's a great idea. Yeah. Shit, I might do that for my next campaign. Like Kel says, about halfway through Company Men issue 2, like I might have a companion, even just a digital one, or I'm looking at physical. But I mean, it's a real thing. I don't see why. Just have it there as an add-on. Just have it there as something somebody wants. Like again, Matt, if he's still in the chat, like he's got these characters set in this slightly fantasy-esque version of North Africa, Rome, that sort of era. There's no reason he couldn't do that. He could stat out the characters, stat out the bad guys. You want to be careful. He doesn't want to give too much away. I could do mine for powers or mutants or masterminds or any of those sort of, like you can open source type that sort of stuff. Have the characters there, have their skills and stats and abilities, have a bit of their history, and then have some the chance to make your own character as well, and then have a couple of missions there. The DM can run you through, and you play as these badass CIA mercenary dudes, fighting to keep the status quo. I mean, that could be a thing.
So Company Men 1 is in demand right now. How long is that going to be in demand?
Until the digital files. Well, when the digital file is done. So my colorist, Dio Lima, fantastic colorist, done work at DC, done work at Image. He took the COVID vaccine, he's crook for a bit, and then he got better, and then he decided to take the second COVID vaccine, and he got crook again. So he's had a lot of time. He's had a lot of time. We went into this campaign with 100% of the art done, like all the physical art, all the black and white was done. And I think we finished in like June or something. It's taken from June to now to get all the colors because he's been so sick with the COVID quarantine. His missus got the COVID; she had to be quarantined. Then his kids got sick. And then
COVID has been ratchet, like has just been messy,
awful, man.
But especially hard. Like every person that I talked to from Australia, you guys with the COVID and trying to fulfill have been just beat up from either not being able to get books out to tariffs to sickness, to the lockdowns and stuff.
It's and it's all out of our control. I'm so lucky I had that big lead time. Like I remember I was putting the campaign together earlier this year, and I'm thinking, how long am I really going to need? I thought I'll give myself to December. Surely there's no way I'll need all that time. I've needed all of that time. He's been so crook. He hasn't been able to get the pages to me. But he said he's feeling better. He told me he's going to have all the pages to me by, so it's Friday here in Australia. He's going to have them to me by next Friday. He reckons he'll have the last half a dozen pages done by then. Once I've got those, it's a weekend for SK, for Stephen Koch from Sigmate Studios, who's doing the letters. It's a weekend for him to finish the letters. And then he'll put together the digital file. I'll give it to some people, go through it, make sure it's as tight as it can be, make sure all the dialogue and everything's tip-top. So it's the 17th here. Give it another week. You're looking at, so I reckon by the end of this month, we'll have the digital file will be ready to go to print. So that means that sometime between now and then, I'm going to do a week-long campaign where I'm just going to do like second chance, last chance sort of thing, put up some new perks and stuff with some of the stuff we've bundled together, some original artwork and that. Last chance to get it. So sometime, probably the last week of this month, I'll do go on every show that'll have me, say this is my book, it's in demand, it's done, digital file's done, we're going to print, and then see what I can do there, see if it gets any more interest. I sort of feel like in a lot of ways the campaign's peaked. The people that, because it's niche, it's fairly niche. It's bright and colourful, bombastic, and I think it's got broad appeal, but like Suicide Squad does. But then you realise Suicide Squad is actually kind of niche. Everybody goes to see it at the movies and go, buy a shirt from Hot Topic. But the amount of people that actually want to watch bad guys doing bad things for a good reason is more limited than you might have thought at first. So I think I've sort of hit my upper limit on this, and then the next book's going to come back once I've proved myself. It's going to do double these numbers. So I've sort of accepted this is where I'm at. This is where I've debuted. In like I said, second book's about halfway done already now. A couple of months, come back with a campaign for the next book and double that money again, and then do a 1 and 2 edition so people who missed out can get it that way. So I'd say you've only got till the end of the month to pick this up, honestly, before it's out of in demand.
It's not even that. Like this is, people don't even realize this is a bargain. This is 80 pages, $36 American. That's pretty good deal. So.
Yeah, this hardcover, that one too. It's tricky because
jeez.
Yeah, it's tricky because I had to put everything in Australian dollars and sort of convert what it would be in American. And they give me my total in Australian, but it changes based on the value of American. So it fluctuates constantly. Some days I'm a couple $100 up, and other days I'm a couple $100 down. The amount of money, it's pretty wild. It's a bit of a wild.
So so you have to wait for the. Oh man, that's gotta be. You're just like, is this the right day? Should I pull it out today, or should I pull it out tomorrow? What day should I? Oh man,
that's right. Yeah, you got it. Is dipping? Is dipping? Is it going to pop back up, and I should get it that day when it's worth more, or vice versa? Do I pull it out when the value of the American dollar is low, so I'm buying more American dollar on the way back out, sort of thing? It's really tricky. I see that Doug Ernst is just doing his next book straight on his website. He's not doing crowdfunding. I think eventually I'd like to get to that point. I'd like to get to the point where if you want Company Man issue 6 or whatever, like I'll keep doing crowdfunding because it's fun. People like it. You can do the big debut streams. You can do the big closeout streams. It garners more money than it probably would if it's just sitting on your website waiting for you. But I'd like to get to the point where people like it enough and like my properties enough and my writing enough and the artists that I work with, that when I say, hey, I've got this new book out, they're going to go to the website and just buy it that way. Like we're getting the book printed in America. We're getting it shipped from America to the Americans. Or like 85% of my sales have been in America. I'm getting it printed over there. It's going to get sent straight from there to RJ from Critical Blast. He's going to pack them all up. He's got individualized bags, boards, Gemini mailers, the whole deal, shrink wrapped, sealed wrapped, heat wrapped, whatever. It's all getting sent out to you guys. So the shipping's really, really cheap. I'm handling the Australian shipping. Any Aussies who buy physical get it free, the free shipping. They have to pay anything. I'm taking that cost myself to try and build a bit of a, there's comic fans in Australia, but there's not a lot for us. And a lot of people just tend to like, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, that sort of stuff. There's not a big indie scene here, outside of the cities in particular. So I'm trying to sort of say, hey, here's me. Here's my debut comic. It looks great. It looks pro. It's got fantastic art and colors. It's a cool story about, they kill so you don't have to. They fight so you remain innocent. They're super, but they're not heroes. These are not good dudes. You read about this. These are bad guys. They will torture a dude to get information. They'll break legs to get information. Because at the end of the day, somebody says, well, that's too cruel. That's too rough. They say, if I don't do that, a couple of thousand people die. Like, why don't you blame that dude for holding out on me? It's like I've said before, when you watch Taken, they spend so long building up who Brian Mills is and the plight of his daughter that by the time he's shooting innocent people in the arm and jamming electrified railroad spikes to the bad guy's legs, you're cheering for him. You're like, yes, torture that mother. You're like, you're so on board with it. And if you said to, hey, do you think it's acceptable to jam railroad spikes into a tied up dude's legs and then run the house's power current through it to get information on where somebody sold into white slave slavery is? And probably a lot of people are like, no, that's excessive. You can't do that. Like, let's use some other means. But by the time you get to that point, you're like, shoot that motherfucker in the head because you're so on board with him. And it's the same sort of thing with the company, man. Like, you get in with them, you get on board with them, you realize what a wild ride it is, you realize how big the stakes are for themselves and for the world itself. And you're like, these guys are justified. There's that old, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing is, a lot of people, especially in like modern society, don't understand that there are bad people, and it takes strong people to fight those really bad people, and sometimes you have to do things, and like that's the thing is like being able to do what's necessary to like protect everyone. Was it Roosevelt or someone said that? Might have been Churchill. We're able to sleep, something along the lines. I'll paraphrase. We're able to sleep peacefully at night because violent men stand guard, willing to do violence on our behalf. Or bad men are willing. And that's sort of like the motto for the company, man. The reason we're able to sleep so well in this world at night is because when the really, really bad guys turn up, when the big supervillain guys turn up, when the big terrorist attack guys turn up, these guys will just go all out and just glass the place, just scorched earth, an entire area. Yeah, rough men. There you go. Thanks, Tony. Rough men stand really ready to do violence on our behalf. And that's what these guys are. These guys are the rough men. They're willing to do the wrong thing for the right reason. And even in a world where Superman exists, you still need people like that. You still need someone who's willing to go to the lengths that he's not. And there's almost a sort of a paradigm where characters like that, these big sun god characters, almost have to look the other way. Like, as if Superman doesn't know the Suicide Squad existed. As if he doesn't know they don't do bad shit. Like he's sort of going, is he going, that's the government's problem, I don't want to mess with them, I'm going to save this kitty out of a tree, I'm going to stop this dam from breaking. Like, I love Superman, he's my favorite superhero. I'm down with it. It's all good. But, you sort of written him into a corner where he's got to say, oh, I can see that CIA operative about to go kill the president of Nicaragua because they're not willing to get on board with the whole vaccine mandate thing. And Superman has to look the other way. Because if he doesn't, why haven't you written that story? So there's a level of disbelief there. Like, these bad guys still have to exist to fight worse guys. I say these guys are the bad guys, but the guys they fight are worse. My dudes are just tough bad mothers who are willing to do what has to be done. And I think by the end of the book, you'll appreciate them. Even if you're someone who's not necessarily into anti-heroes, you get to the end and you're like, yes, I see. Or if not that, you can at least take a step back and go, I understand how this is systemic, about how this feeds itself, and how, in a way, if these guys weren't being bad, you wouldn't need the company men. If these guys could just go home and just till their fields and bang their wives and have more kids and just be happy with what they got, they wouldn't need the company men to fight them back, So there's levels to it. It's more than just a Suicide Squad ripoff, because it's really not that at all. I always joke that Suicide Squad, company men and Suicide Squad, if they're competent and they get along, they give each other shit, but they're all soldiers, they're all bros, they all know what's got to be done. And while they disagree about stuff, there's none of that snarky backstabbing where you've got to wonder, there's a point there's like, is Peacemaker going to kill Bloodsport? Is he going to turn on him? Like, you never knew for sure if those guys are on the same team. My guys, there's camaraderie and brotherhood there. They are on the same team. So more like an Expendables type feel.
Yeah. They give each other shit all the time, and they'll disagree, and they'll even get into a punch-up over it. But the punch-up is because they're tough men who are used to violence to get their way, so they'll start swinging before one of their other mates jump in to say, you guys are going to regret this, calm down, talk this shit out. And they're like, oh, fine, you're right. Like the Expendables took swings at each other. They give each other verbal crap all the time, especially when it comes to love and relationship and the things they choose. It's like, bro, you're thinking with your dick, it's getting in the way of the mission. Like, sort it out. There's plenty of other fish in the ocean. Let's get the job done. You can't hang everything on this one person sort of thing. There's a lot of that sort of stuff too.
Mm. So you're saying it's not just all blood and guts and action. It's mostly
blood and guts and action. I really pride myself on dialogue, so I think there's a lot of range in the dialogue when the guys are talking back and forth between each other. You understand there's a lot of context there. They'll say stuff and you're like, what is he saying by not saying? One of my favorite ways of writing is when you drop in media res and people just start talking about something, and by what they're talking, the context, and you understand the bigger picture. They don't necessarily say, okay, like in Jessica Jones, so they talked about the big green guy instead of talking about the Hulk explicitly. You know, they're able to talk about the stuff that happened in the Marvel movies without referencing it directly because they couldn't because of licensing. There's a level of implicitness in writing that you can do that I think is very clever that the audience really appreciates, because it's giving them a little high five, like, hey, I trust you to be up here with me and to keep up with me on this sort of stuff. I don't need to spoon feed you this stuff. So I'd like to think it's a pretty smart book as well.
Definitely. Okay, you can catch Kemosabe on his channel, Kemosabe Returns. You can check out all the cool sketch card drawings he's been doing. He's got a lot of streams and more that's coming up. A lot of cool reviews, and you got a lot of stuff going on here. And then I also see you on Comics Mate's channel when you guys do your shared show together, which is. I love that. You guys are very, very entertaining. Dean pulls out some good stuff, and I love your
doesn't
reactions.
he? Yeah. And I don't, like, as you can tell, I don't know most of it. Like, he'll pull something out and I'm like, oh, I've seen this, and then I'm okay to talk about it. Sometimes you pull stuff out and I'm like, I've never heard of this, what is this? And I'll watch it. And that's why I like to have the camera on, because I'm very, my wife calls it corresponding face, corresponding emotion. I've never been a good liar. I mean, every girl I've dated says, you are a terrible liar. You know, I can't do it. If something's funny, I'll laugh. If something makes me sad, you'll see it on my face. If somebody says something I disagree with, I can go really passive and just shut everything down and be like, okay, let's just tolerate this until it's over. But when Dean brings out some of this crazy shit, I just fall off my chair laughing. It's a lot of fun to see what he comes up with every day. He does a lot of work to put that show together, and very often it's the high point of my day, just shooting the shit with a good friend, talking to some cool people in the chat, and seeing what's crazy in the world today.
So I think the last time I was in your chat, I had said something to you if you had ever seen Paul Hogan's cigarette ads. And you're like,
no, I hadn't. No. Yeah.
So this is amazing.
I love Hogs.
Like, look, this is back in the day when cigarettes were acceptable.
G'day. I've been asked to talk to you, see, and being the suave, sophisticated man about town, I thought I'd do the job with a bit of, polish, a touch of class. So I'll get the boys back here to set the scene with a bit of the old mood music. When you're ready, Boris. Anyhow, what I got here is a new brand of cigarettes, Winfield. Have a good look at them. Now, you might say nothing extraordinary about that. Well, I got news for you. And if you're a smoker, it'll be the best bit of news you've had in 10 years or more. These new Winfields are 40 cents.
40 cents.
That's about the price you should be paying for
They're like
smoke.
$10 a pack.
Looking out the length of them.
Yeah, it's 20 or 30 over here.
The best cigarette value in Australia today. Yeah. No risk. And it's not just the extra length.
40 cents to $20 or $30? Jesus Christ. How does anyone still smoke in Australia?
Well, their kids starve and have no shoes while they continue to smoke. It's pretty awful.
Just to give these new Winfields a bit of a welcome, I'll hand you back to Boris and the boys in the band. Let her rip, Boris, I'll come.
Cigarettes were a major event back in the day. Look at that. I mean, like, this commercialized Paul Hogan and a full orchestra and a choir.
Anyhow, have a Winfield.
And it's funny because Winfield Red and Winfield Blue are two of the more popular brands of cigarettes, because I suppose they are still the cheaper out of them all, out of all the options. So if you go into your local IGA or your local Coles or whatever, which is supermarkets, shops for food and that sort of stuff, and you're third or fourth in line, you'll see some bogan with missing teeth, a flannel and thongs on say, oh yeah, give us a pack of Winnie Red, eh? It's always Winnie Red or Winnie Blue. There's always that's the cigarette of choice even today. But yeah, the sad truth is that the cigarettes are so expensive over here with the amount of tax the government puts on it to try and dissuade people from. Yes, it's like they don't want you to smoke, but they're happy to tax it and make millions of dollars a year off it. If everybody stopped smoking, they'd lose millions of dollars. So they know what they're doing. They're not trying to stop anybody from smoking. Worst thing is smoking looks so damn cool, and it's just so bad for you. But they put all these taxes on it to the point where like a carton of cigarettes will cost you a couple of $100, and there's people who will get their pay. And they'll go down the shops, they'll buy a carton of cigarettes for the price of rent, and then they've got their smokes for the week, and they're like, righto, give the rest to the missus and say, just do what you can with that. Just pay what you can, feed us what you can, live off pasta and beans for the next, because it's just, they can't not have a smoke. They're addicted, and that's their first port of call is they get their slab of beer, they get their slab of ciggies, they get their ice or their pot, depending on what part of Australia they're in. It's one of two. And then the missus has what's left over to try and make ends meet. It's rough.
That's insane.
It's an endemic over here.
Yeah, and then what? Like, and then you're like limited on your ability to like have weapons, even for like hunting and stuff like this.
Oh man, you can't even have a replica gun over here. I like old westerns and stuff. You know, I really wanted like an old western, like double action, the old cult peacemakers, that sort of stuff. I had to look at what you got to do, to hoops you got to jump through just to get not even a non-firing gun, not even a real gun that has had all the bits taken out of it, a chunk of metal like a prop that looks like a prop.
Yeah,
doesn't even have the parts. It's just a hunk of metal that looks like what White Oak carried. Thousands of dollars of costs, licenses, fees. You've got to have it in a safe. If you want anything bigger than a 22 in Australia pistol, if you want a 38 or a 45 or a 50 or whatever, you've got to have it in a safe. The safe's got to be electronically monitored off-site. So there's got to be some other security team somewhere off-site that has electronic access to your safe. So if the safe is opened, just say you want to polish your 38, you got a little 38 special, little midnight special, open your safe, get it out, I'm going to polish it, I'm going to take it apart, I'm going to clean it, look at it because I'm not allowed to do anything else. They will call you and they're like, so your safe's been opened, is everything okay? Is your gun secure? Yeah, I'm just cleaning it. All right. Like, it's like, you know, that you see in the movies, you're alarming off what's your safe word to make sure you're the right person.
Blade Runner shit going on there,
man.
dude. Like,
yeah, man.
Oh, man.
If you want anything bigger than a 22 for just target shooting, that's the hoops you've got to jump through. You can get rifles and shotguns and stuff, but you've got to have somebody who lives on a property sign off on it, or it's got to be for shooting purposes. It's still got to be locked up. You got to be, can only transport it at certain times.
You have so many deadly creatures in that country. Every Australian should be issued at least a 22 pistol just to shoot the goddamn spiders, because I don't want to get close to them motherfuckers. Because you literally have the 10 deadliest of everything in the world, like the top 10 deadliest snakes, top 10 deadliest spiders, like all like just concentrated in one little part of the world. And they're like, oh, but we don't want guns. They're like, what?
That's why.
Wow.
That's why Hoag's made such a big deal about the knife in Crocodile Dundee. That's all we've got. And they're going to start banning those. Sure, I'm next. We're going to be the next England. What happened was, and I don't know if the viewers know, but there was a mass shooting down south in Australia, and a bloke killed like 8 or 12 people within about 2 minutes. And after that happened, he had a semi-automatic. It's just pop, 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 pop. And after that happened, the government made this huge push. The nation was grieving. All these people killed. It was like a shopping centre or something. So kids were killed. It was awful. Port Arthur Massacre, it's called, if you want to look it up. And as the nation was grieving, and everyone's saying this would never have happened if we didn't have semi-auto, if we only had bolt action and manual loading and that sort of stuff. So the government did a huge buyback. A bunch of people, the generation above me, like my father's generation, turned around and just gave back their guns, sold their guns. They were given moral righteousness. They felt like they were doing the right thing. They felt like they were saving lives. Nobody questioned, hey, hold on, I've had my guns for years. This is my great-grandfather's gun that I've kept and maintained for 100 years. We used it on the farm, we used it on the land. It's never been used to shoot someone. No one's ever taken it out of my house. They caught the nation while they were grieving and tricked them into handing over all of their guns. And now, as a result, I can't get anything bigger than a 22. And 22 is not going to kill someone. That's not. You don't put someone down with a 22. You shoot it, you're shooting. Why won't you just die? I won't die because you're shooting me with a 22. It's not
You're really just agitating me at this point. Stop.
That's right.
Please.
Yeah. If you know what the .22 actually stands for, you know why you're not dying from it. They're not big bullets.
My question is, though, like, what about other things? You guys allowed to have, like, bear mace or, like, tasers or anything, like, any kind of personal protection?
You're not allowed to buy a bulletproof vest. You're not allowed to have a bulletproof vest if that's something you wanted.
Wait. Okay. Why are you not allowed to have a bulletproof vest? That doesn't even make sense.
Because it doesn't. If you had a bulletproof vest and you're in a shootout with the cops because they're the foot soldiers of the tyranny,
okay.
you might survive, mightn't you?
Oh my God!
They want you dead, brother. They want you as dead as can be. We are so vulnerable here. We outnumber them, and I think a bunch of coppers will come over to our side because there's a line in a movie. It's a song. It's called "The Hard Word." It's got Guy Pearce in it, and him and his mates are in prison. And the prison warden and the local police captain breaks them out of prison every couple of months, sends them off to do a bank job, splits the money with them, puts them back in prison, and says, when you finish the last job, we'll give you your share of the money. So that way they can't be indicted. They can say, well, these guys did the job because obviously they're in prison. And they're waiting for the cops for the first time they get picked up, and they're singing a song. And over here, a 2-cent coin used to be copper in color. What's the color of a 2-cent piece? Copper. What's the color of a 2-cent piece? All coppers are cunts. Now, I'm talking about a coin. I'm not talking about the police. That'd be rude. I'm talking about a copper coin. They're all cunts. I'm not saying all police in Australia are cunts. That'd be rude. I would never say that, especially not on a publicly accessible program like this. I'm clearly talking about the coin. Now, there's going to be a bunch of coppers, I think, will come over to our side if it gets that bad. But then we've got this amendment to the law that says that they can bring UN troops in to police us. Not just in a military level.
Wait. So Australian people voted,
we didn't get a vote.
Okay, so your representatives, quote unquote representatives, voted for you guys to be policed by an outside nation. What sense in the world does that make?
And not even in a military sense, but in a criminal sense. So at that point, if you do something that breaks criminal law, but not like federal, national, military style law, I'm talking about protests. I'm not talking about a riot. I'm talking about you steal, you kill, you thieve, you don't pay your taxes on time. They've got scope to act in that realm as well, which is so beyond the pale. That is not something I should not have Chinese UN troops coming in here, kicking my door down because I'm not paying my land tax or whatever, which I haven't paid for like a year.
Well, that dude, like, that's just, no, there shouldn't be anyone from an outside nation ever policing your population. Like, that should never be a thing.
Yeah. And like you said, we're at the point now where we can't even leave the country. It's so locked down. You got Bancroft and Clayton Barton and his brother, and maybe even Dean, sort of half jokingly talking about emigrating to the US. You can't get out of the country. We had something like 40,000 people apply for international travel. 30,000 of them got knocked back. The 10 that got through had to agree to vaccinations, had to agree to quarantine when they get back, had to be for government, federal, or business purposes. Like, you couldn't just say, I'm going to go visit my friend in Canada. Not a good enough reason, knocked back automatically. Doesn't matter if you were vaccinated or you were willing to do quarantine. They're just not doing it.
The thing about Australia that blows my mind, though, is like it's so different in different states. Like, I keep hearing from different people, like, oh, I'm locked down. Other people like, I'm not locked down. Other people like, it's really crazy here, and they got these Chinese programs trying to make us barcode into places and shit.
Yeah, so it's all real. All the stuff they like I remember growing up in high school and they're saying, learn Mandarin because Chinese is going to be the next big superpower. We want to get in with them, and then by doing that. We have made ourselves really vulnerable to them, and our leaders have sold us out to China. China's got private military bases and airports in Australia. They got private airports in Australia, Western Australia. They've made it themselves. They've laid down extra land. They've imported a whole bunch of dirt and moved dirt from another area, laid it down to make a foundation, and built these airports in Western Australia so they can come and go as they please, and the government doesn't stop them. There's no regulation. They can bring whatever they want to the country. They can just fly their planes in, land in our country, do whatever they want, and leave with impunity. There's nobody watching them. They've just got carte blanche to do whatever they want. They've got so much money. Our leaders just bent over and says, you guys can just do whatever you want. And I was saying to my wife this morning, what benefit is it to have all this money and all this power as one of these sellout politicians because people aren't getting vaccinated. More and more of them are talking about moving closer to the centre of Australia. When you get in the middle of Australia, you get somewhere like Lightning Ridge, which has got the largest number of millionaires per capita anywhere in the world. There's nowhere in the world that's got more millionaires than Lightning Ridge. But they all look like hobos. You wouldn't know it because they're out there working in the opal mines. And they've got millions of dollars worth of opal and they've got millions of dollars in their bank account. They don't pay tax. They don't go on any census. You've got somebody from every nation in the world lives in Lightning Ridge. It's one of the most multicultural places in the world. If you go walking at night in Lightning Ridge, you'll disappear because you'll fall down a mine shaft and nobody will ever hear from you again. It's this wild, wild west place.
I heard about the opal mine. I did hear that you could, like, in the right place in Australia, you could have like an underground like cave house like dug out, and if you're lucky, you could hit a patch of opal and pay for the entire situation.
Yep. And people make their fortune going through the tailings of other people. People go through and go, I didn't find any opal there, and they discard it in these huge piles. You can just come along and just go through it, and you might find something they missed. It's just free reign. It's completely wild out there. It's an amazing place. I've been there a couple of times. I really like it. My missus and I, before we had kids, were like, we could just come out here and live here. We get a job out here somewhere doing something that paid. And because it's so simple and old school and basic in a lot of ways, and everything revolves around the opals, that you go there and open a fish and chip shop or something and just, you're not paying big rent. You're not paying big money. You're not paying money to go to art galleries and restaurants and that sort of stuff. There's no high society there. You go to the local Ari and have a couple of beers at night, and that's it. And just all I wanted was a simple life, brother. I wanted to die on my deathbed, surrounded by my great grandkids, an old man, and they're not letting me have it, you know. So as more and more people talk about moving into the center of the country to escape all the vaccine stuff and to have this more simple life, this unregulated life, I'm saying, who are they going to bring in to replace us? If you got all these people leaving Sydney and going to live at Lightning Ridge or whatever, who is our Chinese affiliated government going to bring in to replace all those people in the businesses? You know, like, it's going to change the demographics of the whole country. I worry for my kids and I worry for my grandkids. Which I don't have yet.
And well, this is the thing too. Well, like, now you're displacing, I guess now, like, because there's so many generations, two indigenous populations, right? Because, like, you have your original indigenous population there, who are pretty much in the center too, right? Like, they're more, a lot of those people are, so, and then you have your Australian population is now running to the center too. So,
which, like, I think has been it's always been their plan. People joke, you go to Sydney or Melbourne, it's called Spot the Aussie. Because you walk down the street and you're the only white person for blocks around. Like, we've got such a huge China. I think like 16% of the Australian population is Chinese. I'm pretty sure it's double figures. They're the next biggest. You got European Australians of European descent, and I'm confident that Chinese are the next biggest, even bigger than Indigenous Australians. So I think it's been their plan for a long time, is to push us out and replace us.
Wow, Australia's a wild place. There's things that, like, because I was watching, like, this trucking show, and I was just like, what? Like, you guys don't have highways everywhere. Like, it's so foreign, because in America we've built roads everywhere, and you guys don't necessarily have the same kind of, like, road infrastructure and the way that, like, you use these super mega trucks to haul your goods across the country and stuff. Like, I was just, like, it blows my mind.
Yeah, there's some really remote places, especially like the top end, Northern Territory, and some places in West Australia and Queensland. There's just like these tiny places right out in the middle of nowhere. I only there's one person who took a government job out in a town called Fink. And from Fink, it's a 4-hour drive to Alice Springs, which is it's not even the capital of the Northern Territory. It's just a big city in the Northern Territory. They've only got like Alice Springs and Darwin as big cities and a bunch of smaller cities. So it's a 4-hour drive to get just to the next town to get groceries and stuff. And it's just all desert. It's just flat. They only go like twice a year, you know, and they just stock up. And it's just an absolute wild part of the world out there. And I think more and more people are going to start moving to more remote areas because they want to get away from the regulations. Not to mention what all these regulations and mandated vaccines are going to do to the remaining Indigenous population. Like, these guys, they suffer from, in a lot of ways, poor health and heart problems, diabetes, overweight, because, you know, they've been introduced to a lot of European style foods. We've only been in the country for like 200 years. You know, that's only 10 generations of 20 years each. That is not a long time. That's like, if you're talking about evolutionarily, not that I believe in evolution, but if you're talking about like in terms of how your body changes over time, that's only 10 generations, 10 births of people to adapt to this new sort of food and this new way of living, and cigarettes and alcohol and all this stuff they didn't have, high fructose corn syrup, all that sort of stuff. Like, there's a huge health epidemic within the native population now. If you take them and say, hey, you guys have to have a mandate or we're not going to give you your weekly payments, because a lot of Indigenous people rely on government money to supplement their income, you know, what's going to happen to those guys? Like, they're already vulnerable. I worry what's going to happen to these guys if they're made to have these vaccines. That's you know, there's enough up in the air about how safe they are. There's no long-term testing on these guys that have got a completely different immune system. They've already got a higher mortality rate than us in almost every metric. And apparently, I saw one the other day, this woman in the Indigenous community said that police and military are going to come in and help support giving the vaccine to these communities. The government could very easily...
Jesus Christ.
The government could very easily just say, well, we won't give you your payment unless you get on board. I mean, these guys live out... You go to Arnhem Land. People in Arnhem Land live very closely to how they used to do before the Europeans turned up. I mean, they have buttons and fish hooks and stuff like that. Like, they still use some quality of life stuff that makes things easier, but they don't participate in the census. They don't necessarily have birth certificates. They don't necessarily, like that, you know, they don't have ID cards and all that sort of stuff. They don't worry about a lot of that sort of thing. They live very, very naturally out there, and that's an area that's been set aside for them to do that. And some people choose to go in there, and you've got to actually you actually got to apply to go in there, particularly if you're not Indigenous. You can't just go walking in there. Like, it's very much sort of their part of the world. And so what are you going to do? Like, go on there? These guys aren't hurting anybody. Nobody's hearing about COVID coming out of there, but this government's, I'm talking about any sort of mandate that says you have to do this or else, and they're forcing it on these people that are already vulnerable. It's a real worry. And I don't know if anybody's going to stand up for them because they don't necessarily have the power, the voice, or the finances to do it themselves at this point.
Yeah, but SJWs are gonna be out there like sitting there shrieking about how got to do all these things to protect people. There's just like the evidence is just not out there, and the other thing that annoys me is that like a lot of countries take their cues on like what America does, and America has their COVID being ran by the guy who was possibly responsible for the fucking outbreak in the first place. You know what I mean?
It's
like
wild.
it's the weirdest like comic book shit. Like it's like real life comic book stuff. You know what I mean? Like that's a real like super villain plot. Like the guy that creates a super virus that fucks up the entire world is then in charge of it in one of the country.
It's like somebody said something like if you tried to sell real life as a book, nobody would buy it because they wouldn't believe it. It's like that all over again. Like if you sold this as a story to somebody, they're like, this is too on the nose. No one's going to believe this, and here we are living it. So, I mean, yeah, we're really under the pump when it comes to restrictions and mandates and that sort of stuff. The stuff the government's putting in place, the freedoms that they're taking away from us. The fact that they call the vaccine passport the freedom pass is propaganda. You can be free if you just do what you're told. Yeah. I mean, there's people saying, I don't want to do it just on the basis of the fact that you're telling me to do it.
Yeah, just because you said so, just because you're trying to make me do something.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's just not. It's not even necessary. It's not necessary. It's a ridiculous overreaction. It's like they're just. I don't know. It's a very, very confusing situation that we got going on right now, and it's like I'm very annoyed about the situation because I feel like I was sold like a fake bill of goods when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like there was a whole different world. There was a creative world where there was like room for people to like do their thing or whatever, and people could have opinions and like people could disagree, and that happened quite often. And you know what I mean? Like there was just general rules of decorum in public and stuff and how people treated each other. Now it's like the internet, social media. You just film people and you act like an asshole to every person, and then you put it all over social media, or you put a bad review on somebody's business and you find out like you didn't know they're SJW, and then they track you down like spurring rumors or like whatever terrible thing that they can do like to fuck with you somehow, dox your information, like, and there's no rules, and it's ridiculous.
It's come full circle. It's like gotten worse. I remember that bit in Wanted by Mark Miller, the comic, not the movie, where his dad's explaining to him. He said, 1986, that's when we did this big supervillain attack and wiped out all the heroes and took over, which is, of course, when you've got Crisis on Infinite Earths in the beginning of the Bronze Age, where they sort of reconsolidated all the different universes into one continuity. And his dad's telling him there's a point there where we nearly didn't do it. He says, you don't understand how much better the world was before we did this. Like, we weren't in control. Sure, we were in and out of prison because the superheroes are so good at what they were doing. He said, but the sky was prettier and the colors were brighter, food tasted better, the air smelled sweeter. He goes, the world was such a better place before we did this, and some of us didn't want to lose that. I feel like 9/11 was almost like that for us. Like, I talk to young people and they can't even imagine what it was like before then, like how carefree everything was. Even in Australia, like we felt it everywhere. I mean, the whole world is the stuff. I often say to my wife, it's like, there's no way I would let our kids do half the stuff that we got away with. It was just so carefree back then. It's so easy going. There's no mobile phones. You just say, all right, Mum, I'm going riding with the mates, and you jump on your bike and she said, all right, be back for dinner.
Yeah. There's a time. There's some kind of time frame that you have to be back in. But yeah,
man. I don't even let my kids out of my sight right now. If I'm outside of the house, I got all the house locked up. And we live in a little quiet little suburb, really remote, and there's hardly anyone around. The people we do have just keep themselves. It's very, very chill, very quiet. We get like 4 cars come past our house a week. There's nothing, and I've still got my place locked down like Fort Knox because I'm worried about the kids wandering off and getting nabbed or whatever. Like it's just a different world, and this is where we are at the moment. It hurts to look back and see how it used to be and how it's not nostalgia. Like it was measurably, objectively better beforehand. And I've said before, I'd easily give up a whole bunch of the technology we've got between now and then to go back to how that was. I mean, silly talking like that because we can't, but I think
but the real creative freedom, there was a real ability. I don't know. It's almost like we were prepped, right? We had all the great superhero books and all the great superhero stories and stuff, and it was like they were prepping us for for this situation. Like, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we're like the generation of people that have to deal with it. Because I remember, different points when I was in school about like reading history and thinking about, man, that had to be a crazy time. I couldn't imagine what it was like to be in America during McCarthyism or during like, all kinds of different things that have happened. Like things like people were being so ridiculous. How could they act that ridiculous? And here we are. Here we are. Now we're in a hyper chamber of ridiculousness. Like it's become, the entire world's become clown world. It's not even just like one country or a couple of countries. Like it's the whole world. Like this is the most volatile I've ever seen anything. I've never in my lifetime when I was a kid ever thought that after, like growing up, I never thought, we had little wars like Gulf War or something like that, but like I never imagined the possibility of a world war. And now I believe it's very possible. It's very possible to happen. And even civil wars, and not like all across a bunch of nations, I could see civil wars happening.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a Chinese curse, I think it is, and it says, "May you live in interesting times." And I get that one now. I get that one now because I don't want to live in interesting times. I want to live in very, very bland, very boring, very regular times.
I wanted a regular milquetoast life. I wanted to be able to put away money for retirement and shit. Like I wanted a nice little like piece of property, like I wanted a nice little garage with some tools. You know what I mean? I just wanted just a few things that was just mine that I could just
That's what makes me so mad. Is so few of us wanted. So many of us wanted so little, and they wouldn't even let us have that. Like, you just want your little patch, you want your kids. You want your kids to be happy, them just basic needs met. A little veggie patch out the back, and just enough money to breathe, so you're not constantly worried and scared. But
be a little entertained, be comfortable, and just be able to do like a basic life every.
That's what I was saying. Like when our parents or grandparents were sitting down watching I Love Lucy reruns and eating TV dinners. They had the world by the balls then. The bad guys were running shit, no doubt, 100%. They controlled everything, almost more so than today, because I don't think people were as aware of fake news and fake media and the lies. Like all the stuff that's coming out now, you get two sets of information and you've got to sort through what's real. Back then, I think people believed a lot more easily and a lot more immediately. So back then, they probably had an even tighter control over things. But they ran the world. They had everything, and now they want more than everything. That's what makes me mad. You guys have got everything. You've got control over it all. The media, the news, the TVs, the politicians. I
know. Couldn't even pull a Matrix, right? And just let the plebes be plebe, right? Can't you just like run the shadow government and just let me like have my little piece of land and pretend like there's a dream? Like what happened to that? What happened to faking me out?
Yes, please fake me out, because especially if you've got your own, if you got some level of belief or spirituality, big picture type, universe type stuff, whether it's karma, whether it's an active sapient God, whatever your personal belief is, if you're someone who believes in a big picture, long-term stuff, you could be forgiven for going, okay, this is temporary, there's a bigger picture. So you're happy to just sort of trundle on in your mediocre little life and just like, there's a bit in The Simpsons where Homer screws over Mr. Burns, and Mr. Burns says, I'm going to make it my personal mission to make sure your every dream in life remains unfulfilled. And he flies off in his helicopter. And Homer's freaking out, says, Marge, make it better. I'm so scared. And she goes, your dreams consist of getting a root on a Saturday night, extra applesauce on your pork chops, and football on the Friday night after Friday night telly. Like no man can take those dreams away from you, so you're good. Like your dreams are so simple. It's a real Homer Simpson, Al Bundy sort of thing. I'm very much the same, I got my missus, I got my kids, I get to draw and talk to some cool people now and then. I get a shot off a couple of times a week. I'm fed. I'm happy. I don't need revolution, but they're taking even that away from me now to the point where revolution seems like the only course to take. I think some of these Australian politicians had better be careful. Like there's some people out there that have got nothing left to lose. These guys get out in public and they start demanding and dictating, you can do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. You can only have this many people over. They're telling us straight to our face, if you're not vaccinated,
even if your military and police do have like weapons, there's only so many of them, and just like you just can't beat a people like you know what I mean? Like you can't beat an entire crowd. Like eventually, if like 100 people come at you, they're gonna overcome you.
And that's what's happened in the last few times. They probably don't report on it much. We had some pretty big riots in some major capital cities. Not riots, they're protests. And the police end up having to deploy tear gas and rubber bullets because they're just outnumbered. 1,000 police turned up and they got swarmed by 100,000 people. Like they said, that's 100 people for every one copper.
Yeah.
How many bullets is in a gun? How many bullets is in a Glock? Like, really?
I was actually surprised when I looked up. Now, I thought, like, because America's got like 350 million people, give or take, somewhere between that and 370. I don't know. And, but like active duty cops, we only have like 800,000. We don't even have a million. We don't even have a million cops. I was like, what? Like, I for sure thought there was like at least 10, 15 million cops. I didn't know that like our society's glued together by 800,000, less than a million people. That's insanity.
Yeah. That's half a dozen people per police officer, and then how many police officers are going to turn and go to the other side because they realize what's happening isn't right. So something to point out about Australia is even though they banned guns and they made it really hard to get a hold of them, they destroyed thousands of them. Gun crime has actually gone up every year. Like gun crime continues to get. So all it did was, as you guys have talked about before, all it's done is taken guns off the people who would use them properly, put them in the hands of criminals who don't follow the laws anyway.
Yeah, they don't follow. Yeah. Hey, don't you do that. Okay, I won't do that. Just because you said so.
There's a reason they're called criminals. They break the law. They commit crimes. Every year, gun crime has gone up in Australia since we did the gun hand back. And all it means is we can't defend ourselves. If you go and you look on New South Wales, is a state that I live in. It's the biggest, most populous, probably the most prosperous state in the country. If you look at the New South Wales gun laws website, there's a line on there verbatim that says the protection of your life or the life of another is not a valid reason to own a firearm. That's the best reason to own a firearm.
That's the only reason.
That's the only reason to own a firearm.
It's protect your life and someone else's. Like a special, like, and this is the thing. Like, okay, so you can't have tasers, you can't have pepper spray, but you can carry a knife. How much common sense is it for your missus to have, even if you bought her a machete, to swing a machete at a man?
Oh no, you can't. You can't carry a knife out in public. You
can't.
If you have a little pocket knife, little pen knife that like my dad and my father-in-law both carry a little pen knife on their belt, just because they're handyman sort of bloke. They're always out in the garden or whatever. You need to cut a wire or whatever. You pull that out, flick it, pop it, put it back. You can't even have that. If you take that out in town, you'll be arrested. You can't even carry a screwdriver. When I was a kid in high school, I used to draw a lot. I'd always be drawing on my sketchbook.
You can't carry a screwdriver? Wait a minute.
No, if you don't, it's anything like that. It's absolutely locked down. They got you got to be over a certain age to buy cutlery at the store. Like
I mean, your shit
ID.
really is going to be like The Simpsons. Are you allowed to have a board with a nail in it?
I've got the biggest board with the biggest nail in it. Don't you worry. No, it's terrible. Like you guys have got to hold on to that Second Amendment. That is so important. It's more important than ever. Like I said, the generation before us gave up those rights. I'm furious because I didn't get a say in it. I was still in early high school, I think, when the Port Arthur massacre happened. I think I was sort of in year 7 or year 8. We didn't get a say, but now it's impossible to get a hold of a gun. And even if you do, you can only get like bolt action type stuff. You can't get anything that shoots fast.
That's the same logic, though. Like, it goes back to the criminality thing. Like, okay, so you made guns illegal, but like if a person is like a murderous, suicidal person, they're still going to do the same fucking thing. They're just going to find a different means in which to do it, or they're going to procure a gun illegally because criminals are still shipping guns in illegally or manufacturing them. Or, I mean, it's 2021. You can make plastic guns with a 3D printer. Like, it's nothing.
That's it. Hope to see more of that over here. I think that'd be hugely illegal. And I don't know how it works. I don't know because from what it looks like to me is a lot of people use plastic parts or the printed parts with gun conversion kits and stuff and sort of cobble together like Frankenstein guns. We couldn't do that here because we don't have any kits. Like, you can't buy anything. You can buy a scope and you can buy ammunition, but you can't buy a gun to go on it or a gun for the ammunition to go into. You can buy 38 ammunition off the shelf, but you can't turn around and buy that gun.
Well, the real question is, like, how tight of a grip do they have on your internet? Because, with the internet, you can pretty much purchase anything you want. You know what I mean? Like with a 3D printer, like, it would only be good for like one shot on a low grain or something. You couldn't make like anything super crazy because it'd blow up. But you could make something. You could make like a little like Derringer like couple shot, like throwaway gun or something.
That's enough to get you out of trouble.
Yeah, and I mean 3D print every single part. You know what I mean? Like you could pretty much probably make all the parts except for like the springs or something, which like nobody's gonna stop you from buying a spring. I hope.
Well, it is Australia. It is Australia. I mean, let's test that theory. I saw this dude. Jake's got a good point. You can't even get gel guns. Like the little we don't have airsoft over here. You can't do airsoft. So they replace airsoft.
You can't do airsoft. What about paintball?
You have to have a license to have a paintball gun. If you don't go onto a paintball premises that's licensed to have those guns, if you want to own your own paintball gun, you've got to have, I think it's a Class D license, which is the same one you need for like a handgun.
Do you have to pay like a yearly tax for that?
Oh yeah.
And you got to go for paintballing for a hobby.
And you got to go to the gun range. Either you've got to have somebody sign off and say that you participate in the sport as a hobby on their property, or you've got to go to a gun range club 4 times a year as an active member to maintain your license. So you can't just buy it and pay your fee. You've actually got to show that you use it for sporting purposes, or they will come and take it off you because you obviously have it for nefarious purposes.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to, you know what? You better watch out or I'm going to give you 50 welts with my paintball gun, like 50 good ones.
Big bruises. They're going to hurt. You're going to hurt for like 5-15 minutes afterwards. It's going to be awful.
It might break skin. You watch out.
Can't have any blood. No, it's atrocious over here, mate. We've got absolutely no freedom, no rights.
Can you have drones? Are you allowed to have drones?
No, well, you can, but there's no fly areas. That if you're caught flying a drone in a no-fly area, you get done.
Where's the no-fly area in Australia? What the fuck? I mean, like
mostly seems to be near Air Force bases and stuff like that.
Oh. I got.
There's a couple of Air Force bases in the Newcastle area. I'm in Newcastle, which is sort of like a Hunter Valley. It's like a largest for Australia, large city. In one of the suburbs there's hundreds of them, so I'm not doxing myself. But it's near some of these suburbs, there's some Air Force bases, and when I've driven past those places, I've seen signs that says this is a no-fly drone zone. If you fly a drone here, the authorities will come get you.
Yeah, I don't know. You don't have to worry about. Man, I know the doxing thing is the internet's such a crazy place, but like, I've already dealt with being doxed a dozen times.
That's crazy.
And my show, and the thing is we just advertise, like me and my partner who do our other show. We're in Spokane. Like, come find us, and we live stream all the time from like parts that you can find. Like, you can find us. You know what I mean? Like, especially him. Like, he'll be fishing or something downtown. He had a couple of people roll up and they had a good time. I was supposed to party the next weekend, but I ended up getting too intoxicated the night before and then just having a rough day. You know?
That's a good excuse. Now, I'd like to get to that point where it's just sort of this loose, cool sort of, you just turn up and have a say and have a joke and have a laugh. It'd be cool to just stream from the beach or stream from a town square or something, or like, a Botany Bay in Sydney Harbour, just set up there with your power source and your camera and just talk shit, have people come along and talk about whatever. I mean, but I'm still concerned about I think it's lessening, the doxing and stuff. Like, less people are less worried about it. I feel like Captain Ski's asking about slingshots. That's tricky. It's a bit like nunchucks. You can't have nunchucks over here.
Can you guys have boomerangs? Are you allowed to have because boomerangs are like the number one toy that they sell American kids. You know what I mean? Like you can go to the dollar store and buy like a shitty boomerang.
Yeah,
right?
you can have boomerangs.
I was wondering. I was gonna be like, is that illegal too? Like, Jesus Christ, do they make the?
It wouldn't surprise me. It'll be next. I think Jake's right.
You know what though? That would be so awesome if there was like a contingency of like badass Australians that went out to the bush and just trained like just like the Japanese did, like the original karate form, and sat there and became like the most badass boomerang like throwing dudes ever, just like boomerangs and bolas and things like that, and just oh man. And then there's like a civil war and like you just see people getting knocked out.
That's not a bad idea, man. I think I should go down to the local park. Oh no, I can't. I'm in lockdown. I should because there's a bunch of different boomerang types and styles, and they don't all return. Some of them are very heavy-ended in one particular way, and the whole idea is just to do as much damage as possible. The idea of the returning boomerang is really a very small percentage of boomerangs, and it's not the ones they tended to hunt with. So it's kind of like It's like throw a shrimp. Yeah, it's like throw a shrimp on the barbie. We don't call them shrimp; we call them prawns. Like the whole premise. Yeah, we love barbecues, and we do put prawns on the barbecue to eat them. But the whole premise of throw a shrimp on the barbie falls flat because nobody knows what a shrimp is. You say shrimp over here, somebody thinks you mean a little person. That dude's a shrimp,
man.
You know.
Have you ever taken the time to watch an Outback Steakhouse commercial, like an American Outback Steakhouse?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God! Because I swear to God, like, because they sold us the bloomin' onion, like that's something that you guys fucking eat every day. And all they did is take one of our carny like fair foods and call it. They're like, and just take this word bloomin' and we add it to it, and there we go. It's Australian. We put an Australian voice actor on there. Boom.
We do say bloomin' though. That's something they got right. No, it's funny. It's funny. I love all that. I love like the more like that Simpsons episode cracks me up with the Australian one. Like I love all that sort of stuff. Some people got a bit.
Oh, where they asked them about the toilet flowing back.
Which is the bit with one of my favourite bits has got to be where he's like, "Hey, Prime Minister, I'm going to talk to my local member of Parliament." So he runs over the hill and just shouts across the pond at this bloke who's floating in a tyre. He goes, "Andy!" Like he knows him on a first name basis because it's so few people over here and it's so casual. The Prime Minister's just floating in this dam, drinking a beer in a tyre, and he knows him on a first name basis. So it's not too far off. I do like that bit.
Oh man, okay. So I'm just gonna have to share this tree with you. This is like one of the OG commercials that introduced this item that is world famous in America. But I feel like there needs to be like some kind of exchange program like this needs to like happen.
I was looking for an onion, a really big onion. A blooming onion as big as your head. One bite of that onion and bam, you were hooked. And you want to have more and more, and you think about it, you dream about them, you just got to have them. And you can't stop, and you go anywhere in those places. Oh yeah, I'm telling you, I was consumed by that onion. And that onion was consumed by me.
It's easy to get a bloomin' onion. Get to Outback Steakhouse. No rules, just right.
How's about a nice juicy steak to go with that bloomin' onion?
Steak? Hey, why didn't I think of that? I love steak. Hey, juicy.
Those Aussie accents are pretty legit. I'd say they were real Aussies. I'd guess that girl giving the steak and the bloke doing the voiceover at the end, I'd guess they were both actual Australians because the Australian accents that a lot of other countries do, particularly America, is really off. It's more like South African. Like it's like to us it sounds really false. But those were pretty genuine. They're getting better though. I think probably the best Australian accent I've heard from someone who wasn't from Australia was Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, where he's playing this actor playing, and there's a bit there right at the he says like 2 or 3 lines right at the end after he takes his contacts out and he accepts that he's a man playing another man, and he slips back into his Russell Crowe style accent. He says like maybe 3 lines in Australian. I'm like, that is the best non-Australian accent I've ever heard.
This is the thing. I can't carry it, and I've tried to mimic accents, but I can't carry it past a phrase. That's my problem. Like some people can do, you know what I mean? Like they get a phrase and it gets them into the voice, and then they can just keep it there. But like anything past, there's just certain words or sound, like certain way you pronounce things that you have to have in your head or whatever. And I've never been like the kind of person that like did a real good accent or anything.
We're a bit like England in that, England's got, they say, if you don't like the sound, if you don't like what you hear, just walk 10 miles. Something like that, because there's all these little villages, and every little village has got its own accent. And you can tell where an Englishman was born by his accent. Australia's a bit like that. We've got such a wide variety of accents. Like I don't sound anything like, to my ear, I don't sound anything like Paul Hogan on that cigarette ad, but there's dudes out here who genuinely sound like that. That's the real thing.
I would say that your voice is something of a, your icon is really something of a controversy, because a lot of people did expect a Paul Hogan looking person when they saw the icon.
A catfish. Yeah.
Tricked everybody.
I mean, I didn't actually think I was ever really going to do like a face reveal and talk to people one-on-one like this, but more and more I was hearing people say that they just can't trust someone who's just an icon, who's just an avatar. Like if you're going to buy a book off someone, they need to connect. And again, CG is bigly a popularity contest. You need to know the person, you need to connect with the person. I mean, even though Cecil always wears a mask,
Yeah.
You see him, you interact with him, you see his reaction to stuff when he gets drunk and falls off a chair. He just made $10,000. Like you're there interacting with the dude, and this is the age of Zoom and the age of online content and streaming. To just be a face behind an avatar, I think, is a mistake. I think more and more people need to get out. And like I exist out there. I got Facebook and stuff. Like if somebody really, really wanted to, they could probably try and find me out there in the real world. But at this point, I haven't pissed anybody off enough to do that. I don't think they really, really care. But I just use that Australian face because that's that 4chan meme, that Australian shit poster, the one that is always hassling people, always causing trouble, which is kind of funny because I'm not like that at all. I'm a pretty easygoing guy. But Comedy Mark said it was such a shrewd move because every time he sees a meme with that Aussie shit poster in it, he doesn't think of that guy. He thinks of me. He thinks of me and my comics and my reviews. So it's worked out even better than I planned.
Oh yeah, because now it's identified to your brand. Yeah, it does work. It is nice to have something iconic like that. CG is a weird place. There are some very interesting personalities, and there are some very interesting going-ons and stuff. But I think one of the biggest things is that not only do people need to have their face out there, but they really they need to do more prep and do some like other shows where they can get some advice on how to like do a little bit better for their like the bigger shows. Or they need to have someone that's a salesperson, have a spokesperson come out and sell your book. Because I've seen people who've written brilliant books, have great artwork, and then just dog shit interviews, just complete like come off like they have no personality. And then you look at the material and like, well, this thing sells itself. Like oh my goodness, all you had to do was just tell us what it was.
And if you made the material and it's engaging material, you must have that engaging material inside yourself. It's just, like you hear them get on an interview and their voice wavers and they don't know what to say. I rarely run out of things to say. My voice never wavers. I've always got somebody saying something to talk about. But I feel bad for the people that don't have that yet. It is practice. I know some people say, oh, I'll never be able to do that. I kind of want to agree with that because it's kind of like drawing. Like I'll never get past a certain point. Like I'll plateau to the limit of my ability sort of thing. But you can't help but get better. I think Stephen King said a bad writer can get good, a good writer can get great, a great writer can get excellent, but a bad writer will never get excellent. Know your in educational theory, it's known as the zone of proximal development. There's a zone around you of how far you could develop further.
Well, I think if you're able to write a brilliant property, then I think you're able to at least get to the point where you can communicate the idea to people. And, like I said, at least competently enough to know that you need a salesperson, right? Where like you can, if you're asked questions, you can answer questions in a competent manner and not be all nervous. I mean, because nobody gets on stream and like thinks that nobody's comfortable. I know that some people are like, watching and they're like, oh, this guy seems so good. No, it's not like, it wasn't like that. It took a long time.
It does.
I used to like stare at the clock and stuff, or stare at the view, or just worry about all these different things, and have 200 so much, you just get all wrapped up in the whole thing. You get nervous, and it just throws you off. And it's like you just get comfortable.
It's a skill.
Over time.
It's a real skill. Yeah, I remember the first stream I went on. Somebody was like, "Oh, geez, that's a lot of dead air," but they're talking about something that I had no interest or opinion on. They're talking about like Star Wars and Star Trek. I'm not a big fan of either. Like, I'm happy they exist. I'm happy people love them and they have their fandom. Like, I wish Star Wars people get their property back, not being mangled. I wish Star Trek, same thing. I wish those guys could have the properties they love. Yeah, you're in high school or whatever, and there'd be some guy like, football's so dumb. Football players are dumb. It's ridiculous. It's pointless. What an idiot. Why would you waste your time watching? Why do you care what somebody does with their time? Watch football. Watch soccer, watch basketball, watch Star Wars. I wish everybody could have something they liked and they could enjoy. I wish there was something for everybody. I wouldn't want to take that away from everybody. But I'm not a big fan of either Star Wars or Star Trek. So these guys are talking about this and they're like, you're not saying anything, Kim. I'm like, I've got nothing to say. I haven't even seen half the stuff you're talking about. So that hit me pretty hard the first time I streamed. I thought that wasn't a very good show. I've got to get better at this, but I've worked in sales before. I've worked in situations where I've got to stand up and talk in front of an audience of several hundred people in my career many, many times. It's not something I'm really too worried about. So I've got to change my mindset. I've got to think about it like that. Imagine that I'm on the stage just talking to a bunch of people. That's less worrying than sitting there going, everything I say, hanging on every word, making sure you don't say the wrong thing. Because a lot of time people just go into shill and they want to make sure they get their details right. What you've got here is a great format. I've come on and we talk pop culture more than anything else. And that's great. That's easy because everyone's got an opinion. We can talk. We've got nearly for 2 hours now, brother. And you can do another 2 hours on it because it's just life. You can talk about that sort of stuff all the time. The differences between nations. That's easy to do. So maybe more people need to do that sort of stuff before they start going on shill streams. They just get on, just talk to some dude. Come on this show, come on our show, just react to things that are happening and be willing to back up what you say. There's been 1 or 2 times I've said stuff here and the chat's like disagree with me. Okay, that's cool. Like, don't let it throw you and don't take it personal. Like if everybody agreed with me, it'd be a very, very boring place. I don't mind a bit of dissent. I don't mind people saying it. And if people say, hey, why do you think that? I'm happy to talk to them about that too. You got to be able to stand with convictions of what you say.
You got to get past. I think. Well, the problem, like you got to. There has to be some other stuff. Like there has to be more entertainment because if everybody's doing show streams, then it's just like watching a nonstop marathon from channel to channel to channel. And so, like that's why I really liked when I found yours and Dean's show. I was like, oh man, here's something that's like CG related. It's content like. Same thing, kind of like with Black Rose Comics. B-Rose does some stuff like that.
B-Rose is a lot of fun. Like, who's going to go back and watch? So Malin does that stream where he invites half a dozen people on. They get, 8 minutes or something. I went on once. It's very regulated. Yeah. Who's going to go back and watch one of those from a month ago?
Oh, no, you're not going to go back. It's a literally in-the-moment thing. It's an in-the-moment stream, and it's the same thing because it really, like, you watch an EVS stream, and now it really is. Like, it's because there's so many people on the panel that they're shilling it's just like it's a Jerry Lewis telemarathon.
It is. And sometimes you get sick of being sold to. Sometimes you don't have the cash. I found that when I was doing the rounds the first time I had the company men come out, I'd be saying the same stuff over and over again. I'd see the same people on the chat, and I tried to mix it up a bit. I'm like, well, these guys have already heard this. I know there's some people who haven't, but once I cover the basics, let's like I've showed you the book. The book sells itself. I show you the book, you look at the artwork, that sounds good. What is it? CIA run metahumans in the Middle East trying to stop a terrorist attack before that kicks up into World War III. And then along the way, their own government burns them, and they've got to prove their innocence, stop the terror attack, and get back in the good graces of the CIA, or they're going to have a target on the back of their back for the rest of their life. That's it. Less than 30 seconds, done. You know what the book's about. You have a look at the art, that looks cool.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting, perplexing situation to be in. I have to save the world and save my ass simultaneously. But if I just try to save my ass, the world's going to end. So
yeah, that's right. You can't really do one without the other. By saving the world, they save their ass. If they just run away and save their ass, they're on the CIA hit list for the rest of their life. Like at some point, you'll go to sleep in some flop house in Baghdad, thinking finally I've got ahead of them, and then this little 32 just slides in. You can't get away from these guys, so you got to come good. And when you talk about writing and the obstacles in writing, they talk about the 3 types of death: personal death, professional death, and physical death. And personal death's like your emotional death, like you lose a loved one, or you get out of a relationship, or your reputation suffer. Professional death is the death of what you were good at. You lose your job, or you're no longer able to do that job. You're no longer able to do that thing that you really care about. And then there's the physical death, which is actual real death. All obstacles have to be some form of that death, whether you're losing access to a loved one because, look at like, I don't know, some rom-com, some kind of Sweet Home Alabama with Reese Witherspoon in it. I watched the other day. There's 2 types of death in it. There's the personal death, her losing out on the dude that she loves. There's the professional death of not getting married to the mayor's daughter or whatever, the mayor's husband, like the rich dude. And then there's the professional death of her losing her fashion line or something because she's marrying this hillbilly instead of Patrick Dempsey or whatever. Like there's many, many deaths that she faces within this story. And there's no physical danger to her at all, but there's enough deaths of concepts and things that matter for you to care if that's your sort of movie. Same sort of in The Company Man. I talk about how these guys face all these deaths. They face physical death. They face death of their reputation. When you're a bad mercenary motherfucker and your job's kicking in the doors and shooting bad guys in the face, and someone says, hey, he's really bad at that, he didn't stop this from happening, your reputation suffers. If you see yourself as that guy and then you're no longer seen as good at that, what are you? You lose your sense of self. So they've got a whole bunch of reasons.
You just made me realize that they killed rom-coms. These SJWs killed rom-com. Now look, I'm not like the biggest. It's not like it's a genre that I love, but like when you have a lady around. You know what I mean? When you're thinking about like Netflix and chill, now you got to find like some kind of season that you guys like agree on. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like Netflix and chill used to be like whatever romantic like whatever, you know, the leading man.
You never see the end of it. Yeah. You never see the end of it. You put it on. 20 minutes into it, you're like, I know what we're here for. We're not here to watch Reese Witherspoon. But
you know what though? I can tell you this: most of my buddies that are in their like 20s that are married and stuff, they do see the end of the movie, and that's sad.
Oh,
that's sad. For me.
That's a shame. That's not how it should be.
No, you know what I mean? Like now that I think of like when I really put thought about it, I think about the conversations. Like, oh, you guys like. Oh yeah, me and my wife watched the show together. It was pretty good. Like, oh, you guys actually watched the show? like, wait a minute.
I remember had a girl.
You're confused.
Girl come over one time and to watch a movie, and I put Orgasmo on. You know Orgasmo?
Oh yeah, one of the back in the
sort of. Yeah.
It was that, and then what was it? Cannibal. They did like Cannibal Carnival or something. Cannibal something before
the musical.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they also did. But it only just sort of come out. I'd only just come across it. And I just thought it was the funniest thing ever. And you know when you got something that you like and something you think is funny or cool, you want to share it with someone. So you know, she did not get it at all. That did not go well. But we still didn't see the end of the movie. So
I'm gonna make love to you.
I don't even think we got up to Big Bertha there. I don't think.
Oh man, did you get to the stunt cock or did you get to Sancho? Stunt cock.
No, I didn't get to Sancho. I love when they call stunt cock and the black dude comes in. And he's like, Roger, who's that? And he goes, that's Steve, the new stunt cock. He goes, and you don't see anything wrong with this? He's like, nope. The director's like, all right, fuck it.
All right. All right.
Whatever.
Go with it.
Yeah,
you know what's amazing about porn? Like I know that you and your partner reviewed some like porn trailers, but what people don't realize about porn is that there's actually like back in like the 70s and some of the 80s and earlier, there are real composers that used to work on like the porn music and stuff, like real musicians that had like that was like their back room gig or like a side gig.
Yeah.
So there's like some real professional music made by some really like some serious musicians that did like movie scores and stuff like that.
Like Two Girls, One Cup scored by Hans Zimmer. That's like cup level stuff. No, that's you hear about like the guys that made Superman used to do like Tijuana Bibles with all the BDSM type stuff, like just to pay the bills in between, you know, like.
I heard like Barbie or something. Barbie, like I think Finatra was talking about or something like that. Like Barbie was drawn by like a BDSM artist or something like that.
Yeah, it's wild. You got to do what you got to do. I suppose these days they just all use. They wouldn't even have composers, would they? They just all have sample tracks and mix it all together on some program. And I don't know. I don't think a lot of the porn today even has music, does it? It's just like.
I mean, does anybody actually watch a movie? I think it's all clip. I mean, pretty much. I think everybody just gets on their phone and like watches a clip of some random whatever genre.
That's right. You hear with the streaming and everything, you hear someone like, "Oh, I can't put my computer in the shop all the porn on it." Who saves porn? Who saves? Like it's just there. If you got spare 15 minutes, you jump on, like you said, just watch some clip of some rando. Maybe you got a favorite, maybe you got a particular hair color or whatever you want to see. You jump on, you do what you got to do, and you're done. I don't see the point in saving it. And I think a lot of it's just sort of like gonzo, like this is Candy, she's here to fuck. This is Steve, he's here to fuck Candy. Go. And there's no story, there's no setup. There's just like just two dudes, two people banging.
I don't think that it pays as much. You know what I mean? Like I just don't think. I mean, there are like some bigger companies that still do a little bit of that stuff, but like I just don't think outside of like your hardcore like wrestling fans, I think there's still a contingent of hardcore porn fans that are like. Have their favorite actresses that follow their careers and stuff. Like go to the
big expos and that.
Yeah, and like get signatures and do all that kind of stuff. Like good. I mean, whatever. Hey, if those girls are happy and the fans are happy, if you're all happy, like good on you. Whatever. As long as you don't get so deviant that it seeps into my world or my children's world. You know.
That's it, brother. That's it. No, I think you're right. That so much of it now is popcorn porn, like popcorn entertainment. You know, like. You can jump on and watch a clip of some wrestling match without context, without the story, without knowing who the wrestlers are. You can just see them performing.
Well, that's because nobody wants the story anymore. Like that's what they're looking for. Like wrestling, oh my God, it made me think about this right now. Wrestling has become porn. Like at least like AEW, like a product like that it's so obnoxious because it's not wrestling anymore. Now it's just acrobatics, group acrobatics, and poorly done group acrobatics for almost no audience. You know what else makes me nuts is that like wrestling used to have an audience, and even like old stuff like territorial, like United States territorial wrestling, where like it was different like groups of states that had like an area, right? Even that had more viewers on television when it was on television than any modern product does right now, whether it's WWE or AEW, and I don't care if you count like streams or anything else. And I love when AEW fans are like, well, what about YouTube? I don't know. Go to any AEW YouTube video and see like the 10,000 total streams that it has, and like tell me the math there. Like it's still not million. It's still not the 6 million people, the 10 million people. It's not the crowds and audiences. It used to be diverse. Now it's just these. It's boiled down to just these nerds. It's just this, and it's just it's just pieces of it. It's not even the whole picture. It's.
Have a listen to this and tell me if I'm on the money. And it might not be the whole picture. I sort of feel like what caused this avalanche of degradation of wrestling till it become just the pieces of what it was. Like it used to be a product. It used to be a whole product. It used to be a whole show. Mick Foley's book come out, and it destroyed kayfabe. Like kayfabe had been nipped away at for years, but his book came out, and it absolutely decimated like everything. It was anything lay bare. And from that, you got the new Smart Mark mentality where people are really wise on what's happening behind the scenes and predicting stuff. And we moved from an era of Big Boss Man and Junkyard Dog to an era of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or Rocky Maivia and Stone Cold Steve Austin. They're still personalities. Then we moved to Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes.
Yeah.
They didn't like, eventually he became the Viper. Eventually Cody Rhodes had a gimmick, but it was just Randy Orton in his black trunks and Cody Rhodes in his black trunks with Ric Flair in his pink trunks. Like it wasn't that bombastic personality based thing anymore. It became legacy. It became, like instead of being called like, Johnny Diamond, the sparkling whatever, like instead of having like a name, it was just Steve Johnson and Barry Tierney and Ron Swenson or something. Like there wasn't big names anymore. They were just dudes. They were just dudes that wrestled, and they didn't.
WWE did a very good job of trying to take it away from the individual character wrestlers and being dependent on that and turning it into an entire product where there's multiple characters, so that there's not too many people that can hold Vince over a barrel and be like, I'm not going to perform. And he goes, okay. You know what I mean? For 99% of people. I mean, we've seen some big cuts recently from WWE. At any given time, like almost any, aside from people like The Undertaker, even Hulk Hogan left the WWE, because
you don't have like, a Big Boss Man used to be like ex corrective services cop gimmick, and Bob Holly used to be Spark Plug Holly, ex race car driver. Like they had gimmicks. They were dudes that did things. I Yankum was this huge dentist, like terrible stuff. Some of it.
People forget that Kane was Ivan Yankum.
Yeah. Honky Tonk Man and Jake the Snake, like they all had gimmicks. I don't feel like people have got a gimmick anymore. It's just, I'm Randy Orton and I'm a really good wrestler, and because I strike fast, I'm called the Viper. That's not really a gimmick. That's a nickname. Even Triple H's Cerebral Assassin thing was more of a nickname than a gimmick. They try and push, he's in your head, he's in your head. Yeah, but that's not an ex-cop, ex-security guard type, like the Big Boss Man. Like these guys used to have cartoon characters, these comic book characters, and now they're just John Smith, and he's got a nickname of the whatever because that's what he does, but it's not a big character anymore. I think that's the biggest loss for me in wrestling. They no longer have these big personalities, and because you don't have the big personalities, you don't have the big storylines. Remember when Tori had to go and spend a weekend with Tupac because Tupac beat Kane in a match? Like crazy shit like that just doesn't happen.
The Attitude Era. The Attitude Era was just
wild.
Was crazy. But like, people like Randy Orton, though.
I don't mean pick on Randy Orton, but he's
the
just
RKO. Well, I'm just saying, like the RKO. That his version of it's cool. I love watching the highlight reels of it or whatever. But it was done by Jake the Snake. It was done by Diamond Dallas Page. You know what I mean? Like it was done by Stone Cold. Then it was done by Randy Orton. Like it's all the same thing. It's a DDT. Like
yeah. That was I I look back at how it used to be, and I just think we just don't do. It used to be a comic book. It used to be a living comic book come to life on your screen, and now it's my ego's big and I'm better than you. My ego's bigger and I'm more better than you. Let's fight about it. You know,
but it's okay. But they used to do things like believable storylines, like real drama, like between people and stuff, and I don't mean like soap opera drama, but like a real like the match like played out the way that they worked with each other, the build up, the talking back and forth, all the promos and stuff. Like now everything's scripted, and then like scripted really poorly, so you don't allow people to like develop a real character or personality or bring a character to life as much. And then it's just it's so controlled, because then they do like cinematic shit. It's like they're doing the wrong kind of character stuff, right? They're doing the cinematic stuff, and it takes you out of suspension of belief, right? Like even though like the Undertaker was kind of a crazy, like mystical kind of one of the more mystical characters, you know, he still had, there was like his wrestling gave you a believability. There was like, they did these matches, and even like the crazier characters in WWE still pulled off a level of realism. Like that, you know, at least got you to like, for that match, forget about it. Think, you know, that it's predetermined or anything. Like, people were saying that there was like a big pop or whatever for CM Punk when he came back to AEW. But like, does anybody remember Hulk Hogan versus The Rock? Because those two guys stood each other in the center of the ring for 10 minutes before the match started. And the entire time, the entire fucking stadium was losing their mind.
Yep.
So just based off of how they walked in, a little bit of bare minimum of interaction, and just like walking around the ring a little bit,
because they were the history. Yeah. You got decades of history between the two of them as individual characters, and when they finally meet, these two titans of the industry, that's historic. That's a big deal. Storylines used to take a long time. You'd feud with someone for 6 months to a year, longer. You remember the corporate ministry, how long it took for Austin to finally realize Vince was behind it and to actually get his hands on Vince. The amount of times, I remember I got into wrestling right a little bit before that, you know, like really, I used to watch it a bit as a kid in the 80s, but there wasn't anybody that really captured my attention so much, you know. And then I come back and I'm seeing D'Lo Brown versus Shamrock, young Rocky Maivia still in the Nation domination. I'm seeing headbangers, that sort of stuff. And then Steve Austin comes out and just starts dropping stunners on everybody. That's my guy. And then the corporate ministry storyline happened, and that went on for like a year. And he was just constantly getting screwed out of the title, and every week he'd get screwed again. You're like, oh, come on. So when the pay-per-view come around and he finally got his comeuppance, he finally got justice, you were out of your seat, man. You were on your feet. You were cheering in your lounge room. I don't think anybody reacts like that anymore. Now it's all like smart stuff like, well, if this guy wins and that guy wins, they're going to have to give the belt to that.
Now it's like some stupid, like it's almost, people watch it like people watch in Japan, like, or it's like this clap fucking session bullshit, like, oh, look at he performed a moonsault. Look at how, like, and it's just like, there's like, these people are just a bunch of fucking spot monkeys jumping around doing extra damage to their fucking body, like they're tearing themselves up, you know what I mean? A lot of these guys are doing more for less. It doesn't add any drama. It doesn't add any significance to it. When you use the same move on a 120-pound woman that you use on a 300-pound man, how am I supposed to believe that it's, you know what I mean? Like, like if I bounce this dude off the ground and he's like ginormous and he's a monster and he survives it, okay, that's believable. But if I bounce this 100-pound chick with the same move off the ground and she pops up like nothing happened, then, like, you know what I mean? Like, it takes, then obviously I'll never do anything to the big guy. Like, it's just so, it takes you out of reality. And, like, it's so garbage. Like, there's so many mistakes that I see in AEW. Like, I literally have watched people just fuck up moves in the center of the ring, or like, bottom barrel characters going 20 minutes with top tier wrestlers. Like, then how are you the champion? If this, like, you know, jabroni over here is like taking you to the mat for 20 minutes, then how are you that good? You're not that good. That's ridiculous.
No. There used to be almost power levels to it. You know, you sort of have your tiers, and they'd have to rise up through the tiers. And some guys never made it. Some guys were always Bob Holly and Goldust doing the opening match on an episode of Raw or on a pay-per-view somewhere.
Some guys are enhancement talent. Yeah, no. Some guys are enhancement talent. They like enhance other people, but they were still good workers. And the thing is that like, okay, I don't like everything. I'm not gonna sit there and say like I'm 100% like back in WWE over AEW. I think WWE has its issues too, like especially with all the they've gone crazy with the control, but the professionalism. First, the two things where WWE will dominate and always like kick the shit out of AEW is all of their wrestlers look like wrestlers.
Yeah.
They look like real wrestlers, not like indie show, Andy Joe Buck, anybody could come and take your job, like some dude out of the audience could come wrestle you.
Yeah.
You know?
Some of those dudes, I was going to say the same thing. They're like these CrossFit dudes. It's just not, they don't have that impact. Like I know Vince is famous for his love of big guys, but there is an element of truth there.
Yeah, no. And the guys that weren't big were anomaly. This is the part where people are like, well, what about this guy and that guy? I was like, yeah, you're talking about one dude or two dudes. Like when you're sitting there talking about like the high flyers and stuff that made it like, you know, past Vince's block, you're only talking about like 2 tag teams, Edge and Christian and the Hardys, and then you're talking about a handful of cruiserweights, Jericho, Rey Mysterio, Eddie. Like there was but there wasn't a huge list of like small wrestlers. Everybody else is big.
Yeah, I remember I read an interview with Scotty Too Hottie, and he said that he grew up watching the Hart Boys and everything on TV, the Hart Brothers, and he got into the ring with them one time, and he couldn't believe how big they were. He said they're like 6'3", 6'4", absolutely jacked, and he's this little like 5'9" dude. He couldn't believe he's standing in the same ring with them. He said he grew up watching them next to the Undertaker, next to British Bulldog, next to all these big guys, and think, oh yeah, the Hart brothers are small fellas. Owen and Brett are little dudes like me, 5'10", 5'11", sort of thing. And then he got in the ring. He's like, these guys are monsters. They're so huge. They're so jacked. He said he felt like he didn't belong in the ring with them. So there's that level of things as well. Like you look at some dudes and you go, you got to realize they're standing next to the Undertaker, who's 6'10". Like there's a disconnect there.
Or standing next to like Brock Lesnar, that's a human meat shoe. Like, you know, like 265.
He's as wide as he is tall. Yeah, that's true. No, I know people say, the golden age of something is whenever you came in. Golden age of music is when you started listening to music. Golden age of wrestling is when you started watching wrestling. Golden age of comics is when you started reading comics. I know there's a personal element to it and there's nostalgia, but I can't see the modern product as being as good or better than what we used to have. And I agree with what we used to have. We'll never get it back because, again, the fact that they had to stop all bullying sort of adversity storylines because they're doing that anti-bullying campaign with the WWE. They're doing this, the anti-bullying. So all storylines had to be like, couldn't be personal issues. They couldn't pick up anybody. They couldn't have anybody, do a Kurt Angle and take your knee out with a pipe or something.
Yeah, no. God, it's painful. The thing is that the WWE can get away with what it's doing right now for a couple of reasons. A, Raw should be cut back down to 2 hours, but they're not going to because USA is not letting them. So it's just like, you know what I mean? Like they're held there. But like they're also, as a corporation, making more money than they ever have in the history of the company, not because the product's selling more, but because they're selling the product to more areas, right? So when they do, like they were making X amount of money on the network as just being WWE Network, but then they hit like a wall where they just weren't going to need any more growth. They sold that shit to Peacock, right? The rights to Peacock, and then it's got moved over to there in America. Well, that's just one deal. Well, that one deal paid them an extra like $50 million more than that they would have made off the network anyways. But that's just America. So we have Australian rights, we have English rights, like, you know what I mean? We start getting into all the different regional areas, and they have different deals for every single area.
Yep. So there's really no need for them in their mind to change the product or make it better because they can't stop winning.
No,
they can't stop. They keep making money.
They're making more money, and with the new guy Nick Khan, the guy that's kind of run the business into stuff. It seems very much like WWE is in the business of being sold. Like they're looking to be bought by like some much larger corporation.
Yeah. And if that happens, it'll probably never get better because they'll buy it for what it is and say, well, this is making us money.
I found a witch's house.
Okay, I'll come in and have a look in a minute.
I saw a witch in...
Go on. Okay, that's good.
Well, sir, it has been 2 hours and 15 minutes. You've been very generous with your time. So
you've been generous having me on.
if you would like to wrap it up, we can cut it out and you can go take care of the family and
Yeah, I should probably do that.
Check on these witches.
he just got into Minecraft the other day, and he's loving it. And I had to go, and like first 5 minutes, it got to nighttime, and this witch turned up and killed me. And I was just like, I'm done. So now he's going on this revenge quest. And anytime he finds a witch, he kills it. He burns the house down. He goes, "You killed my dad." It's pretty wild, man. And he comes and tells me, he goes, "I found a witch and I killed it for you, Dad." I'm like, "Thanks, kiddo."
Stomping out all our witch problems.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. I got us taken care of.
Yeah. He said, "I don't like it when the witch killed you, so I'm going to kill all the witches." I'm like, okay, that's my boy. It's a revenge, that's a blood debt right there. That's Kill Bill Batman levels. Yeah, man.
Oh man. Well, on that note, you need to check out Kemosabe on his channel, Kemosabe Returns. You can catch him on Twitter at, what is it? Sorry, sir.
At Lee Byron Carver.
At Lee Byron Carver. I didn't want to mispronounce it. And then you can also get on IGG, check out The Company Men. This is the first book, Dead, White, and Blue. It's 60 pages, but you can get this 80-page deluxe edition here for a smooth $36 US, which is...
That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Pretty
and then you
good.
get that cheap shipping within the US as well, because we're shipping it from within the US. So you're paying only, I think it's only like $12 shipping or something. Like it's pretty low. For what it is. So it's we're really proud of it. It's a great product. A lot of people say it looks professional. They say this looks as good as a pro comic, and I honestly believe that. It's the first of 12, but it's book 1 is 60 pages. And then books 2 and 3 are also 60 pages. That makes up the first 180-page story. So it's like a movie. If you think of this as like the first act of a movie, this is what you're getting, 60 pages. If you buy the next 2 books, you get the whole story of Company Men, Dead, White, and Blue. After that, there's another 180-page story called Company Men, Hearts of Darkness. Then we're doing another 180-page story, Company Men, Cold War. And then the last 180-page story is Company Men, Insurgent. So I've got these scripts written out. The books are all budgeted for separately. The money that I raised was just to get the books printed and shipped out. So we are ahead of schedule. We're on track to have this delivered before the December delivery date. Book 2 is 50% done already.
So this is one of the major things for like people. Like this is huge. Like this is a book that like had a lot of pre-work done on it. This is not going to take a year to get. Like it's going to go to printer and it's going to like be in your hands in a relatively short amount of time, especially for a crowd like funding campaign. So get on the ground floor, help build this property. Let's see how far we can get her. 80 page. I mean, this is the thing. We're talking to a man who's willing to go the extra mile to make the story complete. So he says 180 pages. It might be 185. You never know. But we have some cool original artwork still left up here. These are specific pages. So like you can actually like choose.
I picked a couple of good ones. I picked that one where Jura's sending the ice storm out because that's a really cool pose. There's a nice double page one there as well. Page 19 and 20 is actually a double page spread of Cinder and Jura go into this nightclub and they start pushing around the owner saying, "You're going to give us information." They're pushing him around and insulting him and saying, "You're a terrorist and you're involved with this group and that group." And they push him back behind the curtain backstage. "Get in there, you jihad having son of a bitch." And they get backstage and they're all laughing and slapping each other's backs. They're all in on it together. They turn up every now and then and hassle this guy to make it look like he's being beset upon by the evil Americans. And he gives them information and they turn up and say, "Oh, you're responsible for funding this and this." So it makes him look like a big shot to all of his friends. Like everybody thinks this guy's a big deal. So it's all this shades of grey back alley sort of stuff. And then this guy says, "Look, I've got your information for you. I want to help you, but my drug supplier is just about to turn up. Can you guys just sit over there and look really super American while I renegotiate terms?" Like, you son of a bitch. You're using us to come from a position of power to get what you want. You've set this up on, guys, I double booked myself. Bullshit. You want us in the room as known CIA operatives, so whoever comes in to negotiate with you knows they have to do what you say because you look like you got CIA backing. And we're not going to sit here and say, "No, we're not backing you," because then that cuts you out and we're not going to get any information from you, So it's a whole thing. There's lots of geopolitical stuff in there. It's lots of levels of intrigue. The guy comes in, he absolutely blows up, and then Jura and Cinder have to step in and it becomes this huge fight. So it's this lovely double-page spread called Fire and Ice, where Cinder's using his flame power, Jura's using his freezing ice abilities, and they're fighting back against this like group of militia inside this nightclub. It's a fantastic page. So it's all done traditional. It's all pen and ink on a page, so Bristol board. So jump on that. We already sold the covers.
There we go. That's something. I mean, because not all campaigns. A lot of them are done digital now, or like some kind of like hybrid of like they were done digitally, then printed out, and then inked or something. So this is 100% traditional. You got a very cool featured tier. It's very inexpensive, very low. This is actually a really good deal for anything in CG. And there's also, if you want to get a little more fancy, there's some cool metal prints. I suggest if you like actually do really like covers and you like art and stuff, the metal prints that I've seen so far that come out that I've gotten are sick. They're pretty sharp. It's a lot cooler than it sounds actually. But I don't know. I think I got like one for Ace or something and another one, and I was really impressed.
I was like when I first heard about it, I'm like, I don't know, but I saw how crisp they were and how well they replicate the artwork. And these got different types. You got the white reflective metal, so it's really bright, and then you got the flat raw metal, which gives it more of like a deep industrial feel. So there's a lot of great stuff happening with that. We've sold a couple of those, which has been a big bonus to the campaign because it's really just all profit. Like once I pay Phoenix for the raw materials and getting it done and getting it sent out to you guys, the rest is just profit that I can feed back into book 2.
There we go. Well, with that, sir, I've had a great time. Thank you for coming on, and I hope to see you again in the future. Hopefully, I will have a better background. I'll be able to, oh man, there's a couple of times where usually I'm a little bit better at the pitching, but I've been having technical difficulties today with one of my monitors, so it is what it is. But on that, sir, do you have any last words before we play ourselves out?
Just thanks for having me on. I had a great time. Happy to come on again. Thanks to everybody who participated in the chat. And like I've said a few times before, go check my book out. If it's not for you, if you don't like anti-heroes and that sort of stuff, that's okay. Check out the next book. Check out the next IP, the next property. I've got more stories in me written than I've got years left in my life. So I will eventually write something that you like. I will eventually get you money, and I will eventually deliver a product that you're going to be glad that you paid for.
All right. With that, we're going to play a song on the way out. Everybody have a good evening. Thank you very much, sir, for coming on.
Thank you. See you guys.
How many rappers hop on the mic or pick up the pen again? They can hop on this dick and pick up these nuts. Only just beginning. Clips of some linens. I'm drinking and I'm setting up thinking of what's it getting. Give me just 1 minute away cause I'm not finished. Thinking to myself, fuck a willy, I pop bitches. Never pour another drink cause I'm living life on the brink. And you wanna see me sing, get stuck in the mud and beat. Standing to my feet and I'm lacing up on my cleats. You're an angel, I'm a demon, I'm kicking your fucking teeth. Kicking and I'm sitting, I'm serving up your repentance. Leave you bleeding and you're leaking, I pay up your fucking penance. You pretended and I've been it, I own it. And you're a tenant and you're going Mortal Kombat to beat the game till it's finished. Keep picking up the pen and get really you just new riddle. Next to but you fidget, stuck in the muck and rigid. And homie, this is your Chris and then got you at the belligerent. We really know the truth and you're moving, it's like a middleman. Dark in my eyes, dark in the night. Dark and pull up the car, start up and fight. Hit bars and I might load cards with the die. Got marching, then I'm watching getting started tonight. Dark in my eyes, dark in the night. Dark and pull up the car, start up and fight. Hit bars and I might load cards with the die. Got marching, then I'll shoot getting started tonight. Fucking with the squad, I will scar you for life. Cause he acting like a hothead. Put him on ice at the ICU. You being nice to you.